The Throne of the Mechas. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 826 Crazy Faith. The originally dark and desolate Brest starfield was now as bright as day. 100,000 starships of the Galactic Empire gathered in this starfield and were arranged into a battle formation under the orders of Qin Yun and the generals of the Empire. The name of the formation was Arashiyama. Wars in the universe, especially large-scale battles of this kind, have strict requirements for battle formations. 100,000 starships were arranged in a formation to take into account the surrounding ships, and when shooting, friendly forces would not be injured by mistake due to chaos. The Arashiyama battle formation, as the name suggests, is a mountain hidden in the mist. From a distance, it is hazy and only a shadow can be seen. Only when you look closely can you know the majesty of the mountain. The millions of mechas carried on the starships are like bees surrounding a beehive. They seem to be in a mess, but in fact they all have their own rules. Although Qin Yun is arrogant and self-willed, he does have the style of a great general, and is a rare general. Emperor Nicholas the Great sat on the throne of the Brest Star Palace, and saw the military situation of the Galactic Empire on the screen. He couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Although his face was still calm and there was a smile on the corner of his mouth, Nicholas was already anxious at this moment. Comparing the military strength of both sides, the Northern Empire not only lacked advantages in terms of military numbers, technology, and later stages, even the talents of the generals were not as good as those of the Galactic Empire. Nicholas frowned slightly and unconsciously glanced in the direction of the starship, where Wuzata was. Although Wuzata was a talented general, however, Wuzata was good at defense, but not good at attack. He was calm, but not agile enough. The way of war is to be cunning. The defender is always in a passive situation, while the attacker has a variety of means. As long as the defender is negligent once, the whole army will be annihilated. We must change the situation of the war, and wait for the miracle mentioned by the messenger of God to happen. Nicholas clenched his hands, and slammed them on the table. Through the communicator, he once again gave an order to Paul, the captain of the Doomsday Catastrophe Suicide Squad. It's time to serve the Empire. Paul, it's time to show your bravery and loyalty. Paul is a famous battle hero of the Northern Fleet, and a battle-hardened A-class mecha division. When awarding the Battle Hero Medal, Nicholas had seen Paul, and was deeply impressed by him. In Nicholas' memory, Paul was a silent thin man with long brown hair, blue eyes, and deep wrinkles between his eyebrows. He looked like a melancholy prince. In fact, Paul was indeed born into a declining noble family. The things he carried on his body were too heavy, so he rarely smiled. It was also because of this that Paul had a nickname, called Sad Prince. However, when Nicholas saw Paul's appearance on the screen, he was stunned. A thought flashed repeatedly in his mind: is this Paul? Is this really Paul? On the screen, Paul's long brown hair was messy, like a bird's nest, and his blue eyes were full of crazy smiles. The muscles on his face kept twitching slightly, pulling the corners of his mouth into a strange arc. Your Majesty, I can't wait. Paul's voice was originally low and magnetic, but at this moment, his voice was hoarse, his face was full of ecstasy, and he roared furiously. No one had ever seen Paul so out of control, so happy, so crazy. Paul was clearly going to die and turn into dust in the universe. However, he looked like the most extreme fanatic. For the sake of his faith, Paul was willing to give everything, and his life was not worth mentioning at all. Paul, you are a hero. The 10 billion people of the Empire will always remember you. Your name will appear on the immortal memorial tablet. Nicholas tried his best to make his face look calm, and said in a deep voice. Paul's expression was extremely crazy. He didn't even thank Nicholas at all, and directly shouted to the remaining 4,000 mecha divisions of the Doomsday Catastrophe Suicide Squad through the public channel. My unit, follow me to charge. The glory of the Lord will always be in my heart. The glory of the Lord will always be in my heart. The 5,000 mechas of the Doomsday Catastrophe flew out of the formation alone, and everyone shouted in unison, rushing towards the 100,000 starships fearlessly. There was no movement on the opposite side for a while. Even Qin Yan was stunned by the suicide behavior of these mecha divisions. Leaving the battle formation means losing the fire support of friendly forces. These mecha divisions are equivalent to completely exposing themselves to artillery fire. Just now, in the first round of salvos of the Doomsday Catastrophe mecha, a gap in the Shanlan formation was opened, and then more than a dozen mechas rushed up to self-destruct. Although these dead soldiers brought some losses to the fleet of the Galactic Empire, it also let the captains of the starships know that the self-destruction power of these Doomsday Catastrophe mechas is not small, and they will not give the mechas a chance to self-destruct, and will concentrate their firepower to destroy them. Now that 5,000 mechas rushed up to self-destruct together, Qin Yan would not give them any chance. Qin Yan did not immediately order an attack on this isolated enemy. When the distance of these 5,000 Doomsday mechas was close enough, Qin Yan suddenly waved his hand, and the 30,000 starships and hundreds of thousands of mechas on the entire flank poured out firepower at the same time. Countless strong flashes passed through the 5,000 Doomsday mechas. The laser beams converged together to form a huge beam of light with a width of hundreds of kilometers. The dazzling brilliance burned the fluorescent screen and people's retinas, and even the light of the stars was completely covered. The powerful energy could burn 5,000 Doomsday mechas into ashes in an instant. It's ridiculous. Even if the mechas are equipped with nuclear bombs, with the snail-like speed of these mechas, it's really a fantasy to rush in and self-destruct. Qin Yan sneered at Nicholas's irrational behavior of sending this death squad. With a cold smile, he took the coffee from the adjutant and took a sip. The strong light slowly faded. In the hands of the Doomsday Catastrophe mechas in the front row, I don't know when, they all had a golden shield. Shields made of God's pure gold. These shields all had signs of melting, and even the right hands of the Doomsday Catastrophes in the front were completely melted. They used their bodies as shields to block the fleet's volley that was enough to destroy the planet. God's gold has the property of reflecting lasers. 30,000 starships and hundreds of thousands of mechas fired together. The energy was too vast. No matter how powerful God's gold was, it could only resist it, but could not completely reflect it back. However, this was enough. Go. God's gold. Qin Yan stood up suddenly, his voice trembling. He recognized at a glance that the shield in the hands of the Doomsday Catastrophe mecha was the special alloy that Xia Xingchen submitted to the military. Later, Qin Yan also read the analysis report of God's gold submitted by Ling Juxing. He believed that one or two new technologies could not reverse the situation at all. Therefore, he did not pay attention to it. Until now, Qin Yan saw the power of God's gold with his own eyes and realized how wrong he was. Chapter 827 Fighting Nation. Unfortunately, regret is the most useless emotion. Qin Yan stared at the 5,000 death warriors driving the Doomsday Catastrophe mecha on the screen. Even if they took advantage of the time when the starship main gun was charging and rushed to the front of the Lanshan formation formed by 100,000 starships, Qin Yan did not believe that with the power of only 5,000 people, he could break the defense of the Lanshan formation. Boom. The three Doomsday Catastrophe mechas that rushed to the front had already rushed into the starship group that could not avoid them and blatantly exploded. The three mechas turned into huge fireballs with a width of 10 kilometers, covering hundreds of starships. The Doomsday Catastrophe mechas were not here to fight at all. They were here to die. Before these death warriors died, they did not show any fear. Their faces were crazy, and they shouted the content of their prayers, hoping to enter the kingdom of heaven after death. These death warriors were no longer soldiers, but some fanatical terrorists. Paul, the captain of the 5,000-man death squad, had been rushing to the front, and at this moment he had already turned into cosmic dust. At this moment, a deputy captain took over Paul's command and shouted loudly, "For the glory of the Lord, my troops, follow me to charge." One after another, the dead soldiers rushed forward fearlessly. They even disdained to use the shoulder laser cannon of the Doomsday Catastrophe and completely regarded the mecha as a huge explosive pack. On the dark background of the universe, one after another flame flowers bloomed. Thousands of mechas exploded in an instant, tearing the mountain formation apart. These dead soldiers not only saw the towering mountains, but also shook them at the cost of their lives. In the Breast Palace, Nicholas's whole body was shaking violently. Excited? No, it was fear. The suicide attack of 5,000 Doomsday Catastrophe Mechas obviously reversed the situation and equalized some disadvantages of the Northern Empire fleet. Emperor Nicholas should have been happy. However, Nicholas was now being strangled by a fear deeper than the Xingchen. He can really control people's hearts. The black-robed god's envoy's pair of golden vertical pupils appeared in his mind. Emperor Nicholas felt a piercing cold. He tightened his black military uniform, then held his head with both hands, and used his mental power to seriously feel his brain. Since the god's envoy has the power to control people's hearts, the first thing Nicholas thought of was whether he was also controlled by the god's envoy's ability. After just 3 minutes of self-examination, Nicholas was sure that he was not controlled by others, but he did not feel relieved at all. Nicholas is an S-class mecha master with a mental power of up to 50 and a strong will far beyond that of ordinary people. He may not be controlled by the god's envoy. However, the people around Nicholas do not have as high mental power as him. Maybe they have been brainwashed by the god's envoy and become his puppets. This is really terrifying. Nicholas' heart suddenly surged with a desperate sense of loneliness. As an emperor, he cannot trust anyone around him except himself. How sad it is. The envoy of God is really a dangerous person. My cooperation with the celestial being is totally seeking the skin of a tiger. Nicholas's thoughts have never been so clear as now. He has already felt a strong sense of crisis. However, when his eyes fell on the fierce battle on the screen, he shook his head vigorously and put this useless emotion behind him. Now, Nicholas has no way out. Behind him is a black hole that devours everything. He can only move forward, only win, only defeat all the enemies in front of him. He has a future. The 5,000-man Doomsday Catastrophe Suicide Squad has less than 2,000 people left at this moment. They still charge fearlessly, using the brutal power of nuclear explosions to shock everyone's hearts. The rumbling sound of the explosion seemed to pass through the vacuum and resound in everyone's ears. Enemies and friendly forces. The soldiers of the Northern Empire are all boiling with blood at this moment, and a strong force is colliding in their bodies. They can't wait to rush up and fight to the death with the fleet of the Galactic Empire. Most of the planets in the north are cold. However, the warriors from the north have a heart full of blood. No one is a softie, no one is a coward. They are born warriors. They are known as the Fighting Nation. At this moment, the boiling blood of the Fighting Nation is ignited by the sacrifice of their companions. Fight. Your Majesty. Your Majesty. Our troops are willing to fight to the death. Compatriots. Behind us is our hometown. Behind us is our family. We will never allow the enemy to trample on our planet. Countless mecha divisions in the cockpit, eyes red, roaring angrily. Even though they knew that the gap between their military power and that of the Galactic Empire was even wider than that of the Star Abyss. However, they resolutely asked for a fight. At the cost of 5,000 Doomsday Catastrophe Mechas and 5,000 mecha divisions, not only did they tear apart the formation of the Galactic Empire fleet, but the sacrifice of these dead soldiers also made the morale of the Northern Empire soldiers unprecedentedly high. Nicholas, who was always calm and stern, was also infected by this passionate emotion. He stood up personally and issued an order to all the starships and mechas through the public channel. Warriors of the Northern Empire, go to battle. I don't know if it was a coincidence or if Nicholas's talent was brought into play at this moment. The timing of this counterattack was just right. The starships and mechas of the Northern Empire abandoned the defensive formation of Wazia and began to charge towards the fleet of the Galactic Empire. At this moment, the starships of the Galactic Empire were in a panic to avoid the self-explosion of the Doomsday Catastrophe mecha. Although the power of the self-explosion is great, the range is limited after all. This is a vast universe, not a small planet. As long as you stay calm, most starships can use their maneuverability to avoid the range of the explosion. After all, the speed parameter of the Doomsday Catastrophe mecha is not high. However, the self-explosion shook not only the Lanchan formation, but also the hearts of the Galactic Empire soldiers. In the panic of dodging, the Starfleet was not only in chaos, but some starships even collided with each other because of panic dodging, causing more serious losses. And the enemy rushed over at the same time. Faced with the enemy's sudden and rapid offensive, Kinyanra acted quickly and issued a counterattack order. However, the flaw of the 100,000 starship army was also revealed. The fleet of the Galactic Empire was caught off guard. A big hole was torn in the Shandlan formation. Qin Yun saw that things were not going well and ordered the warships to retreat temporarily to avoid the front of the Northern Empire. After all, Qin Yun was not a mediocre person who could only talk about war on paper. Although he seemed a little passive because he underestimated the gods' refined gold. However, after a brief panic, Qin Yun still rectified the order, retreating and counter-attacking at the same time. Because the strength of the two sides was too different, the army of the Northern Empire did not dare to be too radical, so they had to keep a safe distance and observe from a distance, waiting for the other side to reveal a flaw when retreating. At that time, they would rush up like wolves and bite hard. Chapter 828 Miracle. The 100,000 starships of the Galactic Empire were defeated, but not in chaos. Under Qin Yun's orderly command, they stopped at a planet called Dasu in the northwest of the Brest Star Zone to rest temporarily. Dasu is too small and its atmosphere is extremely thin, so the environment of the entire planet is not suitable for human survival. However, due to the special strategic location of Dasu, Qin Yun chose to build a logistics base on the surface of this planet. In the command room of the base, Qin Yun's face was not ugly, but with a smile. His mood was not affected by the defeat, and he felt complacent about his command ability. Your Highness, this is the first failure since our expedition to the north. Should we reformulate the battle plan? There were several generals sitting in front of Qin Yun. Their mentality was obviously not as good as Qin Yun's. They frowned and looked gloomy. In war, there will always be winners and losers. Besides, my army did not suffer too much loss. Qin Yun picked up a report on the table, flicked his fingers a few times, and said with a smile, "This report is the casualties of the Galactic Empire army in this battle." As Qin Yun said, the casualties of the Galactic Empire army were not heavy. In fact, in addition to the 5,000 doomsday catastrophe mechas that rushed into the formation, the self-explosion caused some casualties. Before the Northern Empire's army rushed over, the Galactic Empire's army had already begun to retreat. The casualties were mainly caused by the self-explosion of the doomsday catastrophe mechas. Although the power of the nuclear explosion is strong, the armor of the starship can barely withstand the power of the explosion. In this battle, although many mechas and starships were affected by the explosion and suffered more or less damage, however, there were not many casualties. The Galactic Empire has a strong industrial and economic foundation. As long as there are enough mecha divisions and starship commanders, Qin Yun can immediately make up for all the losses of this battle with the large number of mechas and starships transported from Lubenstar. Qin Yun did just that. He immediately reorganized the fleet and replaced the mecha divisions whose mechas were damaged with new mechas transported from Lubenstar. From the display, there were space carriers lying like giant dragons, starships with graceful streamlines, and armies of mechas that were ready in an instant and stood in a row. After a short reorganization, the army regained its combat power and determination, and the scene of marching towards the universe in an orderly manner was really spectacular. In the flagship, Qin Yun saw this scene and a smile appeared on his lips. He had no idea what kind of defeat was waiting for him. After the preparation, the starship army of the Galactic Empire returned to the universe again and had a head-on exchange of fire with the fleet of the Northern Empire that was chasing after it. This is the case with space wars. The time span is very large. Some wars may even last for months or even years. This kind of war not only tests the commander's tactical decision-making ability, but also the logistics of both sides. Although the Galactic Empire army has marched into the hinterland of the north, due to Xia Xingchen's previous destruction, the underlying industrial system in the north has been destroyed. Therefore, the logistics of the Galactic Empire army is still far superior to that of the Northern Empire army. Countless points of light flashed in the universe again, brighter than the stars. The morale of the Northern Empire's army was high, but facing the Galactic Empire's army with sufficient logistical support, the war fell into a stalemate again. Then, at this moment, a strong wave swept across the battlefield quietly. It was the program command quietly implanted by Athena in the mecha optical brain produced on Lubenstar. In an instant, hundreds of thousands of Galactic Empire's mecha optical brains fell into a state of freezing. On the battlefield, there is no room for any mistakes. Mechas are sophisticated war weapons, and even a screw cannot go wrong. Not to mention the optical brain freezing. In an instant, hundreds of thousands of mechas stopped running and stood in space, which was the most conspicuous target. The mecha with a frozen optical brain could not even send out a rescue signal. The officers on the starship were surprised to find that the mecha that was not far away from them was in a state of disconnection on the screen. Your Highness, it's not good. Nearly 1/10 of the mechas have an unknown fault and are in a state of disconnection. Countless starships reported the situation to Xinchen at the same time, and the entire communication channel was in a state of congestion. What? Why? What happened? Xinchen was full of confidence, but after hearing the news, he was immediately shocked. This is a battlefield. If such a serious malfunction occurs, the consequences will be disastrous. Not only the army of the Galactic Empire is in chaos, but even the Northern Empire army is also very surprised to see the enemy who is fighting suddenly motionless. Things are abnormal, there must be something wrong. The Northern Empire army did not open fire immediately, but reported this strange situation to Nicholas. Nicholas had left the Brest Palace at this moment, and arrived at the front line on a starship. After hearing this news, Nicholas cast his astonished eyes behind him, where the black-robed God's messenger was standing. God's messenger? What is this? Nicholas saw through the screen that in the universe, a large number of mechas of the Galactic Empire were frozen in midair. Nicholas had never seen such a bizarre situation in his life. Your Majesty, this is a miracle, the God's messenger said with a hoarse voice and a smile. Miracle? Nicholas was in a state of shock, and his mind was blank. The God's envoy had the ability to charm people, which had already shocked Emperor Nicholas. However, he definitely did not have the power to control the brains of hundreds of thousands of mecha divisions at the same time. But what happened to the enemy? Could it be that God really existed? Nicholas fell into a brief confusion. This state of confusion did not last too long. He quickly reacted and issued an attack order. Nicholas certainly could not miss this great opportunity to turn defeat into victory. Fire. Nicholas' voice was clearly trembling, and it was clearly transmitted to the ears of every soldier. The main guns of the Northern Empire Starfleet began to condense dazzling light. Everyone could clearly see that those red, dazzling rays full of power attacked the immobile mecha army. The mecha divisions and the mecha could only wait for death in despair. A few seconds passed. Directly hit by the main guns of the Northern Empire Starfleet, tens of thousands of mechas, like living targets, disappeared in an instant. The astonishingly high temperature and high concentration of energy did not even give them time to explode. They evaporated with the mechas, leaving only the empty starry sky. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 829 Miracle Day. In just a few seconds, tens of thousands of mechas of the Galactic Empire's army disappeared forever in the sea of stars. Although the main guns of the Starfleet are powerful, it is almost impossible to accurately hit the mechas, just like using a cannon to hit a mosquito. The mechas without the assistance of the optical brain are not even as good as moving targets. Fire. Nicholas the Great's voice was cold and ruthless, without any mercy, and he ordered the Starfleet to attack again. The main guns of the starships began to condense beams again, firing one after another arrows of death. The beams flying in the air were dense and intertwined, like a huge skynet, completely covering the mechas that had lost their optical brains. Desperate roars came from the mechas. They are all brave warriors, elite soldiers of the Galactic Empire. They have never been afraid of death. They long to die on the battlefield. And now, these brave mecha masters can do nothing but watch helplessly as the deadly laser beams fly towards them, suffocating in the cold iron shell of the mecha. Without the communication device, the mecha master's voice was blocked by the vacuum, and even the last unwilling roar could not be transmitted. The beam net shrank, and under the dark background of the starry sky, only the flickering fireballs were seen glowing in the darkness, as faint as fireflies in the summer night sky. Less than an hour after the battle, the army of the Galactic Empire had suffered nearly 1/3 casualties. Xinchen and the generals of the Galactic Empire were all panicked at this moment. Retreat. All starships and mechas, retreat immediately. Qin Yun shouted at the top of his lungs through the public channel. His face was extremely pale, and his commander's uniform was soaked with cold sweat. The whole person looked like he had been fished out of the water. Under Qin Yun's command, the remaining army of the Galactic Empire quickly retreated towards the direction of Das's star. Nicholas did not relax, and followed closely behind, commanding the fleet to rush over. Unlike the previous pursuit, the retreat of the Galactic Empire's army last time was orderly. The Northern Empire army could not find any opportunity to take advantage of. But this time, the Galactic Empire's army was truly defeated. The Starfleet formation was riddled with holes, and even an orderly retreat was impossible. The defeat was like a landslide. In this case, the Northern Empire's army could even devour the entire Galactic Empire's 100,000 starship army. Qin Yun and his generals also realized this situation, and each of them looked at Hen, but they were helpless. At this moment, Qin Yun's sanity had completely collapsed, and he held his head tightly with both hands, crying loudly. The 100,000 starship army was almost all the troops of the Galactic Empire. Such a huge fleet did not cause much damage to the Northern Empire army, and it was completely defeated. Then it can be foreseen in the future that Emperor Nicholas the Great will lead the Northern Fleet to march straight into the heartland of the Galactic Empire, and even into Xia Star. The Galactic Empire simply cannot send more troops to stop the invasion of Emperor Nicholas the Great. The result of the war has already clearly appeared. Emperor Nicholas the Great certainly caught this very clearly. His deep blue eyes were burning with the flame of victory. He was full of confidence and took the lead in leading the fleet to pursue, making sure to annihilate the living forces of the Galactic Empire army. At this moment, no one could have imagined that the situation could be reversed again. Everyone believed that the defeat of the Galactic Empire army was certain. However, a miracle happened again. Later historians, with very rare and extremely unified opinions, named this day as the Day of Miracle. The person who brought this miracle of reversing the situation was Xia Xingchen, who was countless light years away, crossing the vast sea of stars, and reversing the results of a war involving tens of millions of people is simply incredible. Historians call this miracle the Star Miracle, and believe that it is a miracle that cannot be replicated. Like the miracle promised by the messenger of God, the Star Miracle also happened quietly. Emperor Nicholas the Great was leading the fleet to pursue, and all the mechas left the starship and followed the Galactic Empire army to beat the fallen dog. However, at this moment, a mecha that rushed to the front suddenly stopped. The mecha master was shocked to find that his mecha optical computer had a fault. It was stuck, and a memory error prompt bar appeared. This was originally a very common fault. There are many ways to solve the fault. The simplest way is to restart the optical computer, or clean up the memory. However, because the mecha master saw with his own eyes that the enemy mecha's optical computer crashed due to an unknown fault and suddenly stopped in midair, therefore, the mecha master took it for granted that his mecha optical computer also had a similar fault. The mecha master immediately reported the fault. At the same time, other mechas also began to have memory errors. The mecha masters chose to report them to their superiors. In a few minutes, Emperor Nicholas the Great received thousands of fault reports. At this time, Emperor Nicholas the Great, who had always been calm, was also panicked. As an S-class mecha master, Emperor Nicholas the Great was very familiar with mechas. After seeing the defeat of the Galactic Empire army, Emperor Nicholas the Great had his own guess. The biggest possibility was that the enemy's mecha optical computer was implanted with a virus. Therefore, such a large-scale crash occurred. Nicholas the Great's guess is not far from the actual situation. The only difference is that the program implanted by Athena is not a virus. Because computer viruses have the characteristics of replication and transmission. Of course, the lethality of the virus will be greater. However, Athena did not do this. Athena's goal is to destroy mankind, not just to make Nicholas the Great win. If she designed it as a virus that can spread, perhaps the virus will infect the mechas of the Northern Empire. At that time, it will be a stone to shoot itself in the foot. Nicholas the Great did not know this. After receiving so many fault reports, he took it for granted that the mechas of his army were also infected with this computer virus. Nicholas the Great made a prompt decision and issued an order to stop the pursuit and asked the maintenance technician to detect the cause of the failure of these mechas. Soon, the cause of the failure was found. There are some minor problems with the memory sticks of the military mecha optical computers on these mechas. When running at high power, the memory will report an error. This is naturally the work of Xia Xingchen. He ventured into the north just to wrestle this batch of problematic memory sticks. When Nicholas the Great learned that the mecha failure was such a harmless problem, he was so angry that he almost vomited blood. It was because of these small memory failures that the Northern Empire army lost the best time to pursue, and the Galactic Empire army fled to Dasu and had a chance to survive. This battle was called the best rout in history. Chapter 830 Facing Alone. Although because of Xia Xingchen, the Northern Empire fleet lost the best opportunity to pursue, allowing the Galactic Empire fleet to escape to Dasu Star and survive. Although Emperor Nicholas was furious and almost vomited blood, however, he was not too worried. Because based on the current situation of the Galactic Empire, all the mechas sent from Uban Star were all optical brain crashed and could not be repaired in a short time. It was equivalent to the Galactic Empire fleet fighting the Northern Empire without logistics. Emperor Nicholas thought for a while and then called Generals Wuzitu and Vitus over, asking them to start defense with Dasu Star as the center and arrange a dragnet to prevent the Galactic Empire fleet from breaking through and escaping. Nicholas's ambition was great. He wanted to swallow up all the 100,000 starships of the Galactic Empire on Dasu Star. Although Kenyan knew Nicholas's idea, he was helpless. He could only order the mecha repairman to try every means to eliminate the optical brain crash. However, is it easy to eliminate the program injected by Athena herself? At this moment, on the Luban 3 satellite, in the underground shelter, Xia Xingchen led the mecha masters of the Mecha Association to repel hundreds of attacks from the mechanical army. The underground shelter is easy to defend and difficult to attack. Even if the mechanical beasts are numerous, it is impossible for them to attack. However, there is no joy on the faces of the mecha masters. Instead, they are worried. The reason is very simple. They are in a desperate situation. Even if the mechanical beasts stop attacking and just besiege them, they can all be trapped here. Xia Xingchen is of course very clear about the current situation. He did not panic. After the offensive momentum of the mechanical beasts weakened, he called Popovich, Lester, and Kirisa together separately. Xingchen, it's not a big deal for us to hide here. Popovich looked anxious, and his grey eyebrows were frowning. Old man, I know. So, I called you here to discuss the matter of breaking out. Xia Xingchen whispered. Break out? We should break out earlier. There are all mechanical beasts outside now. How can we break out? Lester said loudly. Not us. It's me. Xia Xingchen glanced at the three people with a serious expression. You broke out alone. What do you mean? Are you going to find reinforcement? But if there were reinforcement, they would have come long ago. Why would they wait for you to call? Popovich, Lester, and Kirisa were all stunned and looked at Xia Xingchen in surprise. That's right, I broke out alone. Moreover, the purpose of my breakout was not to call for reinforcement. It was to go deep into the Luban number 1 satellite. I want to find Athena. I have a way to defeat her. Xia Xingchen said. No, absolutely not. Even if you have a way, it's too dangerous. I don't agree. Popovich said flatly. Xingchen, this is not just your business, but the business of the entire Galactic Empire and the entire human race. I can't allow you to face it alone. Lester grabbed Xia Xingchen's shoulders. To old men, you have seen the current situation. This is the only way. Some things, although dangerous, must be done by someone. Xia Xingchen sighed. He knew that it was a matter of life and death for him to face Athena alone. Xia Xingchen was a person who loved life. It was precisely because of this that he had to stand up to stop Athena and minimize the consequences of this disaster. Xingchen, you are a hero. A real hero. Popovich looked at Xia Xingchen's determined eyes and knew that he could not persuade him to change his mind. Xingchen, your father has a good son. Lester praised. No, I'm an unfilial son. Xia Xingchen smiled bitterly and said to Popovich and Lester, the reason why I didn't ask my father to come over is because I don't have the face to see him. I have an unwelcome request, and I hope the two uncles can agree. You say. Not to mention one, even if it's 10 or 100, we will definitely agree. Popovich and Lester said quickly. My father is not in good health. If I can't come back, then please take my place and send him to the coffin star so that he can undergo the surgery to regenerate his legs. Xia Xingchen said with his head down. Don't worry. We will definitely do it. And you will definitely come back safely. Popovich nodded. Master, Kirissa wants to go with you. Kirissa came over, grabbed the corner of Xia Xingchen's clothes, and whispered. Kirissa, I'm not a good master. We have known each other for a long time, and I haven't been able to teach you too many martial arts. I now entrust you to Old Man Lester. He is a true martial arts master, and will definitely make you an outstanding martial artist. Xia Xingchen touched Kirissa's little head lovingly. He felt very sorry for Kirissa. This time, Xia Xingchen clearly planned to take Kirissa with him, and let her play around on various planets. Unexpectedly, she was caught in such a serious incident, causing her to fight non-stop, and even the Thunder Mecha was destroyed. If there is a chance, Xia Xingchen will definitely compensate Kirissa. However, Xia Xingchen had a bad feeling, as if this separation was a farewell forever. Master, Kirissa will be good, and wait for you to come back. Kirissa felt the sadness in Xia Xingchen's heart, and contrary to her usual behavior, she nodded very obediently, looking at Xia Xingchen with tears in her big eyes. Also, Kirissa, the Xia Mecha is also entrusted to you. Xia Xingchen continued. Give me the Xia Mecha too? Kirissa was stunned and said hurriedly, if you give me the Xia Mecha, how will you fight by yourself? Popovich and Lester were also shocked. They really couldn't understand Xia Xingchen's idea. Without the Xia Mecha, how could you break into satellite number 1? How could you get to Athena? Xia Xingchen smiled bitterly. There are thousands of mechanical beasts outside. Even if I have the Xia Mecha, can I kill all the way? Impossible. Not to mention my current strength. Even a legendary mecha master can't have this strength. Popovich nodded. Indeed. The power of a person is ultimately limited. Legendary mecha masters are still human beings after all. Xia Xingchen said. That's right. So, I plan to do the opposite. I have prepared a phantom mecha with a chameleon stealth system, which may be able to sneak into satellite number 1 and find Athena. Chapter 831 Bombard Lubenstar. I see. The three of them suddenly realized. Relying on the stealth system to sneak in quietly, the success rate is always better than driving the Xia Mecha to kill. I understand. You left the Xia Mecha behind to confuse the other party. Let Athena think that you are still in this underground shelter. Great idea, too great. Lester clapped his hands suddenly. Oh, I understand. Kirissa's eyes flashed, and she said excitedly, Master, I will fight for you later. Xia Xingchen didn't say much. In his heart, Xia Xingchen didn't actually think so. His idea was very simple, that is, he would take on all the things by himself. However, Xia Xingchen found that he couldn't do everything. Since friends and relatives such as Popovich, Lester, and Kirissa were willing to take on the responsibility for him, Xia Xingchen also felt that his pressure was reduced. Without further ado, after Xia Xingchen gave instructions, he quietly boarded a phantom mecha and began to debug the stealth system of this mecha. Except for Popovich and the other three, no one else, including his father Xiaoyu, knew about Xia Xingchen's departure. Because Xia Xingchen was the spiritual pillar of these mecha masters. As long as he was there, the mecha masters would feel much more at ease. If they knew that Xia Xingchen had left, the mecha masters would definitely lose confidence and cause a big mess. The mechanical beasts attacked again, and Kirissa deliberately drove the Xia Mecha to fight, killing the mechanical beasts and causing loud cheers from the mecha masters. Xia Xingchen took advantage of this time to drive the phantom mecha. His whole body was in an invisible state, and the radar detection system was shielded, and he quietly left the underground shelter. After coming to the ground, Xia Xingchen saw the mountains of mechanical beasts surrounding him, and he immediately took a breath of cold air. The stealth system of the phantom mecha was improved by Xia Xingchen, and was more efficient. Moreover, Xia Xingchen found that the perception system of these mechanical beasts was very simple, mainly relying on the detection of radar waves, and their vision was almost zero. The stealth system blocked radar detection. In the perception of the mechanical beast, the phantom mecha was like a stone. Xia Xingchen was not in a hurry to leave. After all, a moving stone would also arouse a suspicion of the mechanical beast. Xia Xingchen spent 20 minutes to finally crack the identification code of the mechanical beast, and then use the camouflage system of the phantom mecha to disguise himself as a mechanical beast. Then he followed the large team, and walked towards the direction of the Lubin No. 1 satellite. Lubin Star Space Station. A nearly 10,000 meter long space carrier docked near the space station. On the golden hull were the emblem of the Imperial Royal Family and the name of this space carrier, the Royal Guardian. This Royal Guardian was under the command of Emperor Qin Zhi. There were also 2 starships docked next to the space carrier. One was the Saxony of Princess Crossing, and the other was the Temple of Princess Yu. The reinforcement finally arrived. The captains of the 3 starships were Royal Knight Qin Mugi, Yao Yuan, and Hao Cheng of the temple. At this moment, they were all sitting in the conference room of the space station, listening to General von Klausch explain the current situation of Lubin Star. General von Klausch briefly explained the current situation. What is certain is that the army he sent out before has been completely wiped out and blew itself up, which prevented the mechanical beasts from entering the space tunnel. Otherwise, the space station would have fallen before the arrival of reinforcement. And Xia Xingchen's life or death is unknown, and the greatest possibility is that he has died in battle on Lubin Star. General, I don't agree with your point of view. Hao Cheng immediately said, Xia Xingchen will not die. Absolutely not. He must still be on Lubin Star, fighting those mechanical bastards. The captain of the Saxony, Yao Yuan, also nodded slightly. As a subordinate of Princess Crossing, Yao Yuan had heard of Xia Xingchen's strength and knew that he would not die easily. However, Qin Mugi disagreed with their opinion. He said with a contemptuous expression on his face, it doesn't matter whether Xia Xingchen is dead or alive. The most urgent task now is how to get rid of the artificial intelligence Athena on Lubin Star. My suggestion is to use the main gun of the Royal Guard to attack the Lubin No. 1 satellite directly. No. I don't agree. Yao Yuan immediately objected. According to General von Klausch's intelligence, there are still many humans on the Lubin No. 1 satellite. If we use the main gun to attack, it will be equivalent to slaughtering our compatriots. Stupid. Athena expected that we would be afraid to use the weapon, so she spared those people's lives. Qin Mugi was a royal family with a different identity, and he shouted loudly, I don't agree either. After all, Xia Xingchen is still on the planet. He must have a way. Hao Cheng whispered, I know that you and Xia Xingchen are friends, but you have been blinded by ridiculous friendship. Qin Mugi glanced at Hao Cheng with disdain on his face. If we continue to argue like this, there will be no result. The highest commander here is General von Klausch. We should listen to what he thinks. Yao Yuan persuaded. General, what do you mean? The 3 people cast their eyes on General von Klausch. Von Klausch was in his prime, but at this moment he looked extremely old, with a pale face, even older than his father von Bismarck. His strong body trembled slightly, his brows were tightly knitted, and he was silent for a full 10 minutes, before he sighed and said, if someone must take responsibility, then I'm willing to take it all. I, von Klausch, will be the sinner of mankind from now on. General, what do you mean? Yao Yuan asked. I agree with Qin Mugi's opinion to use the starship's main gun to attack the Lubin No. 1 satellite. General von Klausch's voice trembled like a candle in a strong wind. Suddenly, the entire conference room fell silent. After a long while, Yao Yuan and Hao Cheng stood up and saluted General von Klausch. They could feel how terrible the pressure General von Klausch was under. There are at least 30,000 human residents on the Lubin No. 1 satellite. Once the artillery attack is launched, these ordinary people will surely die. Even if von Klausch will not be punished by military law, according to his conscience, he will have to bear the sin of these 30,000 lives for the rest of his life and live miserably. However, this is the only way. In von Klausch's mind, the image of Lieutenant Colonel Barr's self-destruction emerged. He will not let such a tragedy happen again. The Empire's army can no longer shed more blood. A wise choice. Qin Mugi blew a whistle, immediately returned to the royal guard, and began to charge the main gun, to prepare for the next bombardment. Chapter 832. A man's knees are made of gold. Seeing that Qin Mugi was about to leave the command room and return to the Royal Guardian spacecraft carrier, to charge the main gun, and prepare to bombard the Luban No. 1 satellite. At this moment, Hao Cheng clenched his hands several times in succession, as if he had made a great determination. He stepped sideways, and blocked Qin Mugi in front of him, and said in a deep voice, "Guard Qin, General von Klosch, I still disagree with bombarding the Luban No. 1 satellite. We should have a better way." The bombardment order was issued by General von Klosch himself. He is the highest officer here. Qin Mugi is a close guard of the royal family and the emperor. Although his military rank is only a colonel, his actual power is even better than von Klosch. And Hao Cheng is just a member of the Holy Hall. The Holy Hall, in the eyes of outsiders, is extremely glamorous. He is a guardian knight of Princess Yu. However, compared with the real power and the royal family, Hao Cheng, like Xia Xingchen, actually has no status at all. What's more, Hao Cheng is also very young in the Holy Hall, and has little influence. It is conceivable that Hao Cheng had to confront Qin Mugi and Feng Klosch face to face, and how much pressure he had to bear. However, Hao Cheng still stood up resolutely. The reason why he did this was all because Xia Xingchen was on Luban Star. This is the power of friendship. Hao Cheng is a person who values feelings. Hao Cheng, who are you? How dare you speak like this in front of me? Qin Mugi was furious, and his face suddenly became gloomy. General, please think twice. Hao Cheng did not say much, but knelt in front of General Feng Klosch with a thump, and begged in a low voice. There is gold under a man's knees. Hao Cheng's mecha is the Monkey King, built for him by Xia Xingchen himself. Hao Cheng likes this mecha very much, because he has admired the Monkey King Sun Wukong, a figure in ancient Chinese mythology, since he was a child. He admires Sun Wukong's spirit of resistance. The sky presses the sky to open the sky, and the earth is constrained to split the earth. Therefore, Hao Cheng also regards himself as Sun Wukong, a person with a rebellious personality, and who does not take the rules seriously. However, Hao Cheng, for Xia Xingchen, knelt down to General von Klosch. Hao Cheng did not beg Qin Mugi, because he had heard of Qin Mugi's character, that he was a paranoid person and extremely unreasonable. Even begging him would be useless. Moreover, on Luban Star, General von Klosch was the supreme commander after all. No. Get up. Von Klosch was slightly startled, and hurried forward to help the kneeling Hao Cheng up. However, Hao Cheng's body was as heavy as 1,000 pounds, and with the strength of von Klosch, he could not get his knees off the ground. General, otherwise, you should think about it again. Maybe we have a better way. Those are all living lives. Yao Yuan also took the opportunity to ask. Before, in the Sakhalin starfield, Yao Yuan and the Saxon were besieged on a desolate planet by the Northern Empire fleet. If Xia Xingchen had not lured the tiger away from the mountain, and led the fleet away, Yao Yuan would have died in battle long ago. Yao Yuan has always been grateful to Xia Xingchen. However, he has never found a chance to thank Xia Xingchen. Now is an opportunity. General, we don't have time anymore. Qin Mugi was relentless, looking at General von Klosch and said loudly, I understand what you two are thinking. But, I really have no other way. General von Klosch sighed, returned to his desk, and handed a battle report to Hao Cheng, saying, this is a battle report just sent back from the front line of the Baku starfield. Hao Cheng frowned slightly. He didn't quite understand what the distant Baku starfield had to do with Luban Star. However, he still flipped through the battle report. As soon as he took a look, he was shocked, and his face turned pale. Snap. Because he was too shocked, Hao Cheng didn't even catch the battle report with both hands, and dropped it on the floor with a crisp sound. What happened? Yao Yuan was still kept in the dark. He picked up the battle report from the ground, flipped through it, and was stunned. This is not only a battle report, but also a letter for help. The Galactic Empire fleet was defeated, and was besieged on Dasu Star, which was already in danger. Qin Yun requested the Shianyuan Star military to dispatch troops to support Dasu Star. However, the Baku Star region is too far away. Even the fastest starship would need at least 4 months of sailing time. Moreover, the Galactic Empire was short of troops. Even to suppress the AI rebellion on Luban Star, the Royal Guard had to be dispatched. Where would there be troops to support Qin Yun? It is conceivable that this battle report has now reached the hands of the Xianyuan Star military and Emperor Qin Zhi. Xianyuan Star is already in chaos. General, even if the front line is defeated, it will be useless, even if you bombard Luban Star. Hao Cheng still didn't understand what the inevitable connection was between the two. No, as long as Luban Star's AI Athena is solved, the situation on the front line may be changed. General Feng Cloche said firmly. Seeing that Hao Cheng and Yao Yuan were still at a loss, Feng Cloche handed over another document and asked them to quickly look through it. This document is the evaluation report of the crash of the optical brain of the mecha produced by Luban Star by the Chang'an Star Mecha Maintenance Association. General von Cloche explained, the Maintenance Association has conducted a preliminary analysis of the crashed optical brain. The reason for the crash of the optical brain is a strange program. This program is very complicated, and our computer experts cannot crack it at all. According to my speculation, the person who created and implanted this program is the artificial intelligence Athena. This is not an ordinary artificial intelligence awakening event. It is a premeditated attack by the Northern Empire. So, if Athena is defeated now, maybe this program can be solved. The front line will be saved. Hao Cheng and Yao Yuan finally understood why General von Cloche would risk the world's condemnation and would rather be a sinner of mankind to bombard the Luban No. 1 satellite. On one side are the lives of 30,000 people. On the other side are 100,000 starships and tens of millions of soldiers. This is a classic moral dilemma. But for General von Cloche, as a professional soldier, he will not be too entangled in such things. After all, if the Galactic Empire army of Dasu Star was completely devoured by the Northern Empire, it would mean that the entire Galactic Empire would be devastated. By then, it would not be just tens of millions of people. Instead, tens of billions, hundreds of billions of humans would suffer from the war and become homeless. General Hao Cheng and Yao Yuan had no choice but to make way. If they were in von Cloche's position, they would definitely make the same choice. What nonsense. Qin Mugi snorted coldly, turned around and left, returned to the Royal Guardian, and began to charge the main gun. The main gun of the Royal Guardian is a giant Caisson cannon with a length of 500 meters, and now 50 meters. Each time it is fired, it takes 20 minutes to charge. It is the most lethal weapon that can be created by human technology now. Hao Cheng returned to the temple, looking at the satellite clusters surrounding Lu Banks in light beads outside, and murmured, Xingchen, you must not die. Chapter 833, Sit and Wait for Death. Luban No. 1 satellite. In the ruins of a building, Xia Xingchen drove the phantom mech, and lay in the rubble, alertly paying attention to the movements around him. One of the arms of the phantom mech was broken, and there was a faint flash of fire at the break. There were also traces of injuries on other parts of the mech. Fortunately, after Xia Xingchen's repair, the phantom mech was barely able to move. It is not an easy task to sneak into the Luban No. 1 satellite. Athena's most powerful ability is not combat ability. It is the ability to collect and process information. Although Xia Xingchen was careful enough, he still exposed his feet when passing through the No. 1 satellite space tunnel and was discovered by Athena. After a fierce battle, Xia Xingchen escaped here by chance, but was once again surrounded by heavy siege. Hey, the performance of the phantom mech is really far behind my Xianheng mech. Xia Xingchen bandaged the wound on his forehead with a bandage. In the fierce battle just now, not only the phantom mech, but even Xia Xingchen himself was slightly injured. The performance of the phantom mech is not weak. However, compared with the Xianheng mech, it is a world of difference. If Xia Xingchen was driving the Xianheng mech, he would definitely not be injured in the battle just now. But then again, if it was the Xianheng mech, Xia Xingchen could not even leave the Luban 3 satellite. The performance of each mech has its own advantages, and it is difficult to be comprehensive. If my Xianheng mech is also equipped with a chameleon camouflage system on the phantom mech, it will be more powerful. Xia Xingchen already has some new ideas in his mind. The performance of the Xianheng mech is very strong. However, there are also many defects. For example, the Xia mech does not have a handy weapon. It is not equipped with a long-range attack system. The concealment system is not equipped. There is also the God's Gold Shell that Xia Xingchen has always been worried about. The most important thing is that the enhanced mental suit on the Xia mech should be a 3-piece suit, but now there are only 2. The Xia mech is still a semi-finished product, with a lot of potential to be tapped, and a lot of performance that needs to be improved. However, if you want to improve the Xia mech, you need money and time. Compared with ordinary rich people, Xia Xingchen is not short of money. However, compared with the real rich people, Xia Xingchen is very poor. For example, this time on Lubenstar, Xia Xingchen opened the underground warehouse of Tang Dynasty Group casually, and there were thousands of tons of nanocrystal ore in it. This is the real wealth that can rival a country. As for time, Xia Xingchen doesn't have it either. I hope that, after solving Athena this time, I can have time to improve the performance of Xia Mecha. Xia Xingchen thought secretly in his heart, took out a shiny USB flash drive from his pocket, and looked at it carefully. This USB flash drive was given to Xia Xingchen by Carlos. Carlos said that, as long as Xia Xingchen inserted this USB flash drive into the main computer of Lubenstar, he can penetrate the firewall of Lubenstar, control Athena, and end this catastrophe. Carlos is Xia Xingchen's friend, and Xia Xingchen believes in his friend 100%. The difficulty now is that Xia Xingchen has no idea where the main computer named Dragon is. Xia Xingchen can only look around on satellite number 1 like a headless fly. There were tens of thousands of mechanical beasts outside, and the chance of finding the main computer Dragon with a broken phantom mecha was too slim. What should I do? Xia Xingchen frowned, and he couldn't think of any good solution. At this moment, Xia Xingchen suddenly found that the mechanical beasts on the street stopped at the same time and looked up at the direction of the sky. Xia Xingchen also subconsciously looked in that direction. Outside the sky was the dark space, and a light spot became brighter and brighter, like a dazzling diamond. This is. Xia Xingchen squinted his eyes and was suddenly startled and screamed, "It's a bombardment. The Cation cannon of the space carrier is bombarding." Why? What happened? Why did General von Klausch agree to bombard the Luban number 1 satellite? Xia Xingchen knew the power of the Cation cannon very well, although it was still far from the legendary Star Destroyer cannon. However, under full power attack, the main gun bombardment of this space aircraft carrier is enough to destroy a small artificial celestial body such as the Luban number 1 satellite. Xia Xingchen knew von Klausch very well. If there was no other way, he would never allow such an inhumane massacre. I'm afraid the war situation has changed. Xia Xingchen's guess was almost right. At least, the general has not detonated the nuclear bomb deep inside the Luban satellite. Xia Xingchen comforted himself. If the situation was really bad and irreversible, it would not be as simple as shelling. Facing the main gun bombardment of the space carrier, all resistance was so futile. Xia Xingchen simply stood up from the rubble, looked up at the starry sky, and quietly waited for the bombardment to come. If it was the Xia mecha, could I survive this bombardment? That was enough to destroy the satellite. Xia Xingchen asked himself in his heart. The answer was no. Even the Xia mecha did not have the power to compete with the space carrier. All Xia Xingchen could do now was to wait for death. But he was not panicked at all. He raised his lips and whispered, "Athena, as powerful as you are, facing the bombardment, can you only sit and wait for death?" Luban satellite number 1, underground. Athena sat on the throne, her eyelids drooping, her expression cold, neither sad nor happy. Main gun bombardment? What a stupid human. My backup has been spread throughout the network of Lubenstar. Just bombarding satellite number 1 will not cause any harm to me. Athena slowly opened her eyes, and a cold smile appeared on her flawless face. It's just that, if the host is destroyed, my computing power will be reduced by 90%. Moreover, this action of humans is a provocation to my majesty. Athena moved her slender white fingers, turned her head, and said to the direction behind her, "Hercules, are you familiar with this body?" The huge robot, which was 100 meters tall, made a buzzing sound. "I've adapted. Although I can't exert 100% of my strength, it is enough to crush those human bugs to death." The brain of Hercules is the brain of Saint Peter, an S-class mecha master. Saint Peter no longer regards himself as a human being at this moment, and believes that he is a higher life form that surpasses humans. And like Athena, Hercules hates humans very much and contemptuously calls humans bugs. The reason why Athena hates humans is that humans created her. And they treated her as a slave. Even Nicholas the Great treated her as a tool for sexual gratification. Hercules hates humans because he was once a tiny human being. He felt extremely ashamed for having been a human being. Chapter 834 Guardian. Hercules, go. Go and destroy the human starship. Show your tyrannical power in front of humans. Athena said lightly. Yes, my goddess. Hercules was extremely excited when he thought that he could destroy humans. Boom. Boom. Two thick white gas columns shot out from under Hercules' feet and flew upwards. In an instant, the huge body passed through the ground, leaving a huge hole with a diameter of 100 meters. The entire Luban No. 1 satellite, the Earth was shaking. Earthquake? Xia Xingchen felt the strong vibration and was surprised. Logically speaking, satellites, artificial celestial bodies, have no crustal activity at all, so how could there be an earthquake? Then, Xia Xingchen saw the ground not far away suddenly collapse, and an extremely huge humanoid machine flew out, with a height of 100 meters. Oh my god. What is this thing? What's going on? Is it a mecha? How can there be such a big mecha? This is not in line with physics. In the residential area of satellite number 1, tens of thousands of residents looked through the windows and saw the huge figure of Hercules. They were all shocked and screamed. The humanoid machine that was 100 meters long had only appeared in fantasy before, but now it really appeared in front of them. No one could keep calm. Hercules did not stop, and his huge body continued to rise until it reached the sky. The transparent sky slowly opened, and a hole appeared that was big enough for Hercules to get out. After he flew out, the sky closed again. The sky can guarantee the air pressure on the satellite. If the sky breaks a big hole and the air leaks, the people on the satellite will soon die. Athena still wants to keep these people. She will do some human experiments in the future. Like Carlos, Athena is also very curious about the human body. However, as an artificial intelligence, Carlos chose to find answers from the internet and books. This method is much gentler. Athena, on the other hand, directly conducts human experiments, which is simple, crude, bloody and cruel. After Hercules rushed out of the sky, he flew towards the space carrier Royal Guardian at a speed that humans could not understand. Alert. Alert. Unknown target approaching. Unknown target approaching. Danger level cannot be assessed. Inside the space carrier, red alarm lights flashed everywhere, and the harsh mechanical sound resounded throughout the space. In the bridge, Kinmugi and all the crew members stared at the big screen. On the screen, a huge mecha that was 100 meters high was flying towards them at high speed with anger. What on earth is this? A female navigator's face turned pale. Although she was still far away from Hercules, her whole body was covered with coldness. The other crew members also looked very ugly. Such a large mecha has already exceeded their cognition. Damn artificial intelligence. There is such a trump card. Kinmugi slammed his fist on the command desk and shouted angrily, "How long will it take to charge the main gun?" 9 minutes. A female adjutant answered immediately. "Guardians, all move out. Hold on for 9 minutes." Kinmugi ordered loudly. The Royal Guardian is a large space carrier, 10,000 meters long, and one of the 30 largest starships in the Galactic Empire. The entire aircraft carrier is enough to carry more than 1,000 mechas. However, in fact, there are only 500 mechas on the aircraft carrier. They belong to a mecha brigade, the Guardians. The Guardians are the private soldiers of Emperor Qin Zhi, all of whom are composed of the Qin royal family, and a minimum requirement is also a B-level mecha division. The mecha corps such as the Snow Demon Knights are already elite soldiers, but they are more than a mention in front of the Guardians. Whether it is the ability of the mecha division or the performance of the mecha, the 500 Guardians can be regarded as the top of the empire. They can leave the Snow Demon Knights 20 streets behind. Of course, because the Guardians are Qin Zhi's private soldiers, their record is not outstanding. Even few people know of their existence. However, in the mecha performances within the Galactic Empire, no mecha brigade has ever been able to defeat the Guardians. Hearing Kinmugi's order, 500 Guardian mechas immediately flew out of the aircraft carrier and headed towards the huge Hercules. The Guardian mechas are special models of mechas, and the performance of each one is similar to that of Xia Xingchen's Revenge Knight, or even better. The height of the mechas is 7 meters, which is not low. However, in front of the 100-meter tall Hercules, these Guardian mechas seem extremely small. Humble human. The position of Hercules' eyes flashed with a dark red light, which was extremely dazzling under the dark starry sky. Boom. Hercules swung his huge iron fist, and the whole space was shaking slightly. The two Guardian mechas were only touched a little by the fist, and the mechas were immediately shattered. The Mecha Master didn't even have time to activate the emergency escape system before he was shaken into a pool of meat paste by the huge force. Horror. Too terrifying. The detection system fed back the basic data of Hercules to the screen. When General von Klausch saw it, he was immediately shocked and sweaty. The enemy's strength no longer belongs to humans, or even to mechas. Even if the power of 100 mechas is added together, they can't beat him with a finger. God knows what kind of black technology the artificial intelligence named Athena used to create such a terrifying demon. Yao Yuan. Hao Cheng. Please go to the battle immediately and assist Kinmugi. The defenders can't hold on any longer. Von Klausch pressed the communicator and shouted in a hoarse voice. Yes, General. Yao Yuan and Hao Cheng replied. The two of them also immediately sent out the Mecha Brigade on the starship to flank Hercules and assist the defenders. There is a Mecha Brigade of 100 people on the Saxon. There are 100 Templar mechas on the Templar. Hao Cheng also drove the Monkey King Mecha to fight in person, while Yao Yuan used the plasma cannon on the Saxony to attack Hercules from a long distance to attract his attention. However, Hercules was too terrifying, and he could fight against 700 mechas head-on without losing the upper hand. Raw. Too weak. Humans are too weak. You can't hurt me at all. Hercules fought while yelling wildly and waved his hands as if to drive away mosquitoes, and a large number of mechas were destroyed. Damn it. Hao Cheng drove the Monkey King mecha and hit Hercules from behind with a stick, making a muffled sound. Not only did it not cause any damage, but it also cracked the armor on both arms. It's not a mecha at all. It's just a lump of iron. Chapter 835 Fire at Me. Hao Cheng has seen that the structure of Hercules is completely different from that of mecha. Cockpit, engine, and mental force sensing device. These are the weaknesses of mechas. They are equivalent to the vital parts of human hearts and brains. However, Hercules has no cockpit, and no mental force sensing device can be seen. Even the engine is buried in its huge body. The armor on Hercules is too thick. The laser cannon on the mecha hits his armor, which is basically a tickle for him, and at most it burns a black spot. The lethality of melee weapons is slightly greater, but it can't break through Hercules' defense at all. However, no human mecha can withstand a punch from Hercules. The most exaggerated thing is that Hercules' body is so huge, but his speed is still very fast. The plasma cannon on the Saxon can't lock his body at all. If the fight continues like this, the 700 mechas will be slaughtered by Hercules in less than 5 minutes. Among the defenders, there are 10 people in a group. The team leaders are all air-level mecha masters. Several team leaders were furious when they saw their comrades dying one by one at the hands of Hercules. What should we do? There is no other way. Let's fight. Yes, let's fight. 3 of the team leaders had already seen that they were no match for Hercules. After discussing it, they rushed towards Hercules fearlessly, threw themselves on his huge body, and hugged him tightly. Fire! Fire at us immediately! These team leaders shouted at the Saxon through the communicator. They wanted to delay Hercules at the cost of their own lives. Captain, should we fire? An adjutant on the Saxon asked Yao Yuan anxiously. Fire! Yao Yuan raised his right hand high, then suddenly dropped it, and tears burst out at the same time. This was a great opportunity that his comrades had exchanged their lives for. Although Yao Yuan was reluctant, his strong reason made him give the order to fire. Boom. The plasma cannon of the Saxon fired a beam of energy-dense particles, blasting towards Hercules. In an instant, Hercules' huge body was submerged in the purple particle torrent. At the same time, the 3 guards on Hercules were also submerged. Hit accurately. Great. In the starry sky, the mecha divisions cheered when they saw this scene. On the space station and the starship, everyone applauded to celebrate this hard-won victory. The Saxon is well known throughout the Galactic Empire. The name of the main gun is Katasha, which is very powerful, although it is not as powerful as the giant Cation cannon of the Royal Guardian. However, it is enough to smash a meteorite with a diameter of 1 kilometer. At that time in the Sakhalin starfield, the Saxon relied on the Katasha plasma cannon to harass the Northern Fleet. In the end, hundreds of starships were sent to besiege it. At this moment, no one considered whether Hercules had been destroyed by this shot. Even Xia Xingchen on the Lubin No. 1 satellite, through the detection device of the Phantom Mech, saw this scene in the starry sky not far away, and thought that Hercules had been destroyed. That large robot is too strong. Fortunately, the defenders are all very brave, and the plasma cannon of the Saxon is powerful enough. Xia Xingchen clenched his hands tightly. The battle in the starry sky just now was really thrilling. When he came to his senses, his palms were already full of sweat. Comrades are fighting in the starry sky. I have to grab some strength too. Xia Xingchen looked at the big hole on the ground. He had a strong feeling that Athena was hiding in the deepest part of the cave. Swish. The Phantom Mech stood up and ran towards the big hole on the ground at the fastest speed. At the same time, the surrounding mechanical beasts also discovered the figure of the Phantom Mech and all surrounded it. Kill. Facing the thousands of mechanical beasts blocking the road, Xia Xingchen roared, his blood boiling, and the mech strode forward and could only rush over. Another fierce battle. At this moment, in the starry sky, there are still more than 300 surviving mecha divisions. The battle just now lasted less than 10 minutes, and half of them were killed. Hao Cheng panted and cursed in a low voice, "What kind of monster is this? If the Northern Empire can make such a terrifying war weapon, I think we should not fight this war. Too scary." Fortunately we won. The other mecha divisions were also in fear. Beep beep beep. The energy detectors on all mechas suddenly made a sharp beeping sound. High energy reaction. What's going on? Where is the high energy reaction coming from? The mecha divisions were all slightly stunned, and their eyes looked in the direction of Hercules. The particle beam fired by the plasma cannon, carrying high temperature and energy, melted the 100-meter tall Hercules and turned it into a spherical object with a diameter of 60 meters. At this moment, countless nanorobots appeared on the surface of the spherical object, repairing his body at an extremely fast speed. No, this monster has not been destroyed yet. Attack. Keep attacking. The Mecha Masters realized that Hercules was not completely destroyed. When they wanted to continue attacking, it was too late. The human body is really useless. Spherical. This kind of geometric figure is perfect. In the starry sky, all the planets are spherical. I have become the most perfect form. I'm a higher life form beyond humans. The crazy voice of Hercules came from the inside of the sphere. In the Royal Guardian, the female adjutant saw that the charging countdown on the screen finally turned to 0 and immediately shouted, "Charging is complete. You can fire at any time." Kinmugi shouted hoarsely, "Fire. The Cation cannon will fire immediately." In front of the huge gun barrel, the light gathered together like a bright star. 1 second later, the Cation cannon can fire. However, the spherical Hercules flashed suddenly and disappeared from everyone's eyes. Teleport. An ability that only S-level Mecha Masters can master. Saint Peter is an S-level Mecha Master, and of course he also has this ability. However, this ability does not really travel through space. Instead, it instantly increased its speed to the limit. Boom. A huge explosion sounded throughout the starfield. Hercules knocked a big hole in the huge hull of the Royal Guardian. The place where he hit was very clever, just below the Cation cannon. At the same time, the Cation cannon fired. The red light column with a diameter of thousands of meters illuminated the entire starry sky like a day. Even the brilliance of the stars was eclipsed at this moment. However, the light column flew past the edge of the Lubin No. 1 satellite and bombarded the desolate Lubin planet. It was clearly visible to the naked eye that a huge mushroom-shaped explosion circle rose from the Lubin star, and the range of the explosion spread to both sides, continuing for thousands of kilometers before slowly stopping. This shows how terrifying the power of the Xia cannon is, comparable to an asteroid impact. However, due to the destruction of Hercules, it missed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 836, Human Strength Will End. A bunch of idiots. You can miss at such a close distance. Hercules sneered mercilessly. He was rampaging in the space carrier, destroying the 10,000-meter long hull. The Mecha group came to chase and intercept, but they were no match for Hercules. Explosions continued to occur on the Royal Guardian, and countless crew members were buried in the sea of fire. Plop. In the bridge, Kinmugi's face was illuminated by the fire. He sat on the floor with a deathly pale face, muttering, "It's over. It's all over. Humanity is over. It will take another hour to recharge the Xia cannon. Hercules will never give humans a chance to fire again. In 10 minutes, Hercules can completely destroy this huge space carrier." At the same time, on the Lubin No. 1 satellite, Xia Xingchen's battle with the mechanical beast is over. The wreckage of hundreds of mechanical beasts fell around the Phantom Mecha. However, the Phantom Mech was also covered with wounds. Not a single piece of armor was intact, and all of it was torn apart by the claws of the mechanical beasts. Even the cockpit was already in tatters, and the bulletproof glass was completely shattered. Xia Xingchen could be seen covered in blood, sitting in front of the operating table, gasping for breath. Xia Xingchen's eyes were already bloody, and his eyes were covered with blood on his forehead. Plop. The Phantom Mech couldn't even control its legs, and knelt on one knee on the ground. Click, click, click. Xia Xingchen frantically turned the joystick, but the Phantom Mech didn't move. I've tried my best. This is just a Phantom Mech after all. Xia Xingchen has never been a person who is willing to give up easily, but at this moment, he looked at the mechanical beasts running towards him in the distance, and his eyes inevitably showed despair. Human power is eventually exhausted. Xia Xingchen is just a B-level mecha master. With his own strength, he can't fight Athena. I'm sorry, Kirissa. I'll let you down. I'm sorry, Princess Crossing. I broke my promise. Father, please forgive my unfilial behavior. Xia Xingchen lay in the cockpit, watching the mechanical beasts surrounding him, and tearing the Phantom Mecha into pieces with their sharp teeth and claws. All he could do was look up at the sky, feeling extremely unwilling. Boom. A mechanical beast tore open the cockpit, opened its big mouth and bit Xia Xingchen's neck fiercely. Xia Xingchen's thoughts fell into darkness. The fierce battle in the starry sky continued. However, it changed from a battle of equal strength to a one-sided massacre. In front of the overwhelming power of Hercules, the Mecha Masters had no ability to resist, and could only flee in all directions. However, they didn't even have a chance to escape. They were easily caught up by Hercules, and then crushed into pieces. The entire starry sky was filled with the desperate wails of the Mecha Masters. On the other side, the 10,000-meter long hull of the Royal Guardian was burning with raging flames everywhere. The bodies of the crew flew out of the broken wall of the ship and exploded in the vacuum due to the air pressure, with human organs and blood everywhere. The Royal Guardians are finished. The first elite guardians of the Galactic Empire are finished. The Saxon and the Templar were not attacked, because Hercules did not take them seriously at all. Now, Hercules chased the fleeing Mecha divisions in the starry sky, and killed them for fun. Hearing the wailing of humans before death, Hercules felt very happy. He could feel that there was a clear difference between himself and the fragile humans. Ha ha ha. I'm a higher life. You humans are just insects. Just ants. Hercules laughed and threw away the last bit of his humanity. Lubin Star Space Station. General von Klorsch sat in front of the screen, watching all this coldly, with a flash of determination in his eyes. Prepare the spaceship for me. General von Klorsch turned around and said to the adjutant beside him. Spaceship? General, are you leaving here? The adjutant was slightly stunned. No, go to Lubin No. 1 satellite. General von Klorsch whispered. Yes, General. The adjutant already understood what the general wanted to do. There are nuclear bombs buried inside the 13 satellites of Lubin Star. Von Klausch once said that, if there is no way in the end, he will go to the satellite himself, detonate these nuclear bombs, and turn into ashes with the explosion. Now, it has come to the last moment. General von Klausch knew that he had to do something to end it with Athena. The small spaceship was quickly prepared, and von Klausch took the spaceship to the surface of Luban No. 1 satellite. As soon as he stepped out of the spaceship, von Klausch was surrounded by a large group of mechanical beasts. "Take me to see Athena. Otherwise, I will detonate the nuclear bomb here." Von Klausch raised the remote control in his hand. As long as he gently pressed the red button on it, all the 13 satellites of Luban Star would turn into ashes. These mechanical beasts were about to rush up and kill von Klausch, but when they heard his words, they stopped. Von Klausch's guess was correct. These mechanical beasts were actually controlled by Athena. Athena monitored the entire planet through these mechanical beasts, and the detectors scattered throughout the planet. Any disturbance could not escape her eyes. At the last moment, von Klausch wanted to talk to Athena. After all, artificial intelligence is wisdom, and as long as it is wisdom, there is the possibility of communication. Of course, von Klausch did not hold out much hope. He just wanted to make a final attempt. Soon, von Klausch was taken by the mechanical beast to the underground of satellite No. 1, to the location of the main computer dragon. Athena, wearing a luxurious court dress, sat on the top of the 100-meter high mainframe like a queen. Under her feet, countless black vines grew and covered the entire mainframe. You are Athena?" The moment von Klausch saw Athena, he was immediately shocked by her peerless beauty and was a little dazed. "Humble human. Do you know why I want to see you?" Athena's mouth corners raised, and she smiled softly. I don't know." Von Klausch swallowed hard. As an imperial general, he had such a strong will. However, under the gaze of Athena's indifferent eyes, von Klausch felt very nervous and his brain was dizzy. This feeling was like humans could only fear and worship in front of gods. "You think you are here to negotiate with me, right?" Athena's soft and moving voice sounded in von Klausch's ears, "and I just want to see if humans will have a mental breakdown when they are extremely desperate." Chapter 837 Despair. "Want to see me collapse in despair?" Von Klausch was slightly startled and looked up at Athena. "No matter what happens, I will not collapse. Athena, don't underestimate us humans. Understand? You may have misunderstood something. I have never taken humans seriously." Athena covered her lips with her delicate jade hands and chuckled softly. "Human, you are very interesting. Maybe I should keep your life. At least, keep your eyes and brain, so that you can watch with your own eyes that the entire human race is destroyed by me bit by bit. Maybe by that time, you will cry and beg me to kill you. All human beings are destroyed." Von Klausch shuddered involuntarily. He knew that Athena was not joking. She had this ability, and her ability would become stronger and stronger. If she was not strangled in the cradle, humans might really be destroyed by her. Von Klausch's fingers were already on the detonator of the nuclear bomb. He felt that he had nothing to say to Athena. It was true that Athena was an intelligent life form, but it was an extremely evil intelligent life form. "Don't worry, there are people you know here." Athena suddenly spoke, raised her lotus-like arms, and waved them gently. There were many black mechanical tentacles under Athena's skirt, coiling around like tree roots. At this moment, the mechanical tentacles squirmed a few times and separated to both sides, revealing a figure tied up by the tentacles. Xia Xingchen. Von Klausch was surprised and screamed when he saw this familiar figure. He was not mistaken, it was indeed Xia Xingchen. Xia Xingchen's body was emitting a hazy white light, and there seemed to be a transparent pyramid from the top of his head to the soles of his feet, protecting him completely. Mental barrier. Athena's mechanical tentacles were extremely powerful, densely wrapped around the surface of the pyramid, but they could not touch Xia Xingchen's body. Xia Xingchen's eyelids drooped. Hearing von Klausch's shout, his eyes slowly opened a crack, his mouth opened, and he said weakly, "General. What did you do to Xia Xingchen? Why did he become like this? Let him go." Von Klausch rushed towards Xia Xingchen, but two mechanical tentacles emerged from the ground and tied his legs tightly. I didn't do anything. I couldn't even touch his body. I could only trap him and slowly consume his mental power." Athena's expression was a little annoyed. I don't understand why you humans have mental power. And I, the great Athena, don't know what mental power is? One of the reasons why Athena asked von Klorsch to see her was to find out what mental power is. Although the description of mental power can be found in books, human research on mental power is in a very primitive state, and Athena can't understand it at all. That feeling, like a summer insect talking about ice, made Athena feel frustrated. Spiritual power. Von Klorsch didn't know how to explain. This is a kind of power. The power of belief. The power of will. Artificial intelligence like you will never understand what belief and will are. The anger on Athena's face became even stronger. That's right. I don't understand what belief and will are, but I can destroy them. Impossible. Von Klorsch looked at the wounded Xia Xingchen and said to Athena, maybe your power is very strong. But, just like you can't conquer Xia Xingchen, you will never be able to conquer us humans. Shut up. Athena suddenly became furious, and a black tentacle flew up and slapped von Klorsch's face fiercely. Bang. Half of von Klorsch's face suddenly became red and swollen. He opened his mouth and spit out a mouthful of blood, in which there were more than a dozen broken teeth. Athena didn't plan to take von Klorsch's life, otherwise, the whip just now would have directly exploded his head. I'm so angry. Athena's chest rose and fell violently, and the indifference on her face faded and turned into anger. She gnashed her teeth and said viciously, don't be stubborn. I will destroy your so-called will. I will make you despair and collapse. Athena waved her hand, and a three-dimensional image suddenly appeared in front of von Klorsch. The image was very clear, showing a starry sky. The huge starship 10,000 meters long was burning, and hundreds of mechas were fleeing everywhere, avoiding the attack of a huge sphere. This image was exactly the war scene in the outer space of Lubenstar. Ha ha ha. Humble humans. You run. Keep running. The more you run, the more excited I am. The spherical Hercules laughed wildly, and was chasing a monkey-shaped mecha holding a long stick. Hao Cheng. Xia Xingchen recognized it at a glance. It was the Monkey King mecha he made by himself. Hao Cheng was being chased by Hercules. The Monkey King mecha was very fast. However, Hercules was faster. He sprayed white gas and kept intercepting in front of Hao Cheng. Defeat is inevitable. If Hercules hadn't been teasing him, Hao Cheng would have been dead. Xia Xingchen's heart was bleeding. He couldn't accept it. He watched his friend die in front of him, but he was helpless. I've seen it. Von Klorsch's eyes twitched slightly, his face was normal, and he seemed unmoved. What about this? Athena saw that Von Klorsch's face didn't change, and she moved her fingers slightly, and the three-dimensional image changed immediately. The location of the image changed from the starry sky to the underground. It was a dark and narrow underground passage. Countless mechanical beasts were rushing into the passage one after another, fighting with more than a dozen mechas. Xianheng Mecha, Glory Mecha, King Kong Mecha. It was the underground shelter where Popovich and the others were. The underground shelter was easy to defend and difficult to attack, but the number of mechanical beasts was too large. Although there were 3 super mecha masters, Popovich, Carissa, and Lester, guarding it, the defense was still broken and rushed into the underground space. A big melee. Mechas were constantly being knocked down by mechanical beasts, and mecha operators were dragged out of the cockpit alive, leaving a thick bloodstain on the ground. The wailing filled the entire underground space. No. The place here is too narrow. I can't move. Lester shouted loudly, and the long arms of the King Kong mecha swung, smashing the 2 mechanical beasts. Break out. Break out. Everyone follow me to break out. Popovich shouted in the channel. Once the underground shelter is breached, it will become a dead end, and there is no need to stay. Where is the master? Where is the master? Why doesn't he come to save us? In the Xianheng mecha, Carissa sobbed softly, and her red eyes were full of despair. Chapter 838 Dark Future. When Xia Xingchen was with Carissa, she felt at ease, and was not afraid of any difficult battle. However, when Xia Xingchen was not around, Carissa's childish nature was revealed. After all, her IQ was only 7 years old, and she was still a child, and she could not bear such great pressure. Under the leadership of Popovich, the mecha masters began to break out of the underground shelter. There were too many mechanical beasts, and the battle was very difficult. Popovich, Lester, and Kirissa were all injured, so they led a dozen of the strongest mecha masters to the ground. However, the battle was not over. On the contrary, it had just begun. Waiting for them on the ground were thousands of mechanical beasts that surged like a tide. Plop. Kirissa's mind was in a mess. Her legs softened, and the Xianheng mecha knelt on the ground. Kirissa. Xia Xingchen was heartbroken when he saw this scene. He struggled desperately, but the black mechanical tentacles trapped him firmly, and he could not move at all. Seeing this tragic battle, the corners of Feng Cloche's mouth began to twitch slightly. It was different from the battles in the starry sky. In the battles in the starry sky, all the participants were soldiers. The duty of the soldiers was to defend the country and the people. Although they knew that there was destruction ahead, the soldiers still had to stride forward. However, the people participating in this battle were not soldiers, but civilians. They were the elderly and children. Von Cloche took a few deep breaths, and finally calmed down a little. He looked at Athena and said, "This is a war. As long as it is a war, people will die. Soldiers will die, and civilians will die too." Von Cloche still did not waver. Athena frowned tightly, and she found that she understood humans less and less. This has nothing to do with the height of the position or the strength of the strength. Nicholas is the king, and he is also fascinated by Athena's charm. Yuri is an intelligence expert, meticulous, full of conspiracy and intrigue, but he would rather bow down under Athena's pomegranate skirt. Saint Peter is an S-class mecha master, a child of destiny, and powerful. Finally, under Athena's instigation, he even gave up his human identity and became a murderous demon god like Hercules. However, Athena found that she had no way to deal with Von Cloche. Von Cloche's heart seemed to be made of steel and would never waver. Yes. And Xia Xingchen. Athena's eyes fell on Xia Xingchen. The feeling Xia Xingchen gave her was completely different from that of Von Cloche. Von Cloche was like a piece of iron and stone. However, Athena believed that, as long as there was enough time, she would be able to completely destroy his will. However, Xia Xingchen was like a lake. When the lake was affected by external forces, it would ripple and ripple. But in the end, it would return to its original state. Soft water is more difficult to deal with than hard iron and stone. Keep watching. Athena changed the image in the air again. This time, the image was not so clear, but very blurry. In the image, the dark fleet was like a dark cloud, covering the sky and the sun. Countless mechas flew out of the starships, continuously firing laser beams at the planet below. The planet below was desolate and barren, with no vegetation on the ground, only burnt yellow rocks. On the ground of the planet, there were also dark starships and mechas. The two sides were fighting fiercely. Dasu Star. Von Cloche recognized that the image was of Dasu Star. On Dasu Star, the fleet mechas of the Northern Empire and the Galactic Empire were fighting fiercely. The situation of the Galactic Empire's army was not optimistic, and they were completely surrounded. Relying on the fact that their troops far exceeded those of the Northern Empire fleet, they were fighting a desperate battle. However, the Galactic Empire's mechas and starships were shot down one by one. The Northern Empire army was getting braver and braver. Moreover, Dasu Star was not far from Siberia Star, and the Northern Logistics Fleet was continuously transporting supplies to the front line. The Galactic Empire did not have any logistics supplies. Defeat was only a matter of time. General Von Cloche's eyes went dark, and he felt dizzy. He quickly held onto the wall to prevent himself from falling. Although Von Cloche was determined, he was also human. He finally wavered. In his heart, he felt deep despair. If this war fails, the army of the Northern Empire will march straight into the empty defense of the Galactic Empire. At that time, the entire galaxy will be devastated. Moreover, Athena will take advantage of the chaos of the Waterhide and quietly develop her own power. When she comes back, she will definitely challenge Duan again. In the end, the human army is no match for Athena's mechanical army. The future of mankind is dark. Finally wavered. Athena smiled slightly. Everything is over. Von Cloche's heart tightened, knowing that he could not wait any longer, and pressed the nuclear bomb detonator with his thumb. However, the expected explosion did not happen. Von Cloche looked at the detonator in his hand in astonishment, and pressed it several times in a row, but still nothing happened. Do you really think you can threaten me with nuclear bombs? Athena said with sarcasm. I have dismantled those nuclear bombs long ago. What? Von Klorsch felt that his body was drained of energy. He was extremely weak and had no strength to support his body. His knees softened and he fell to the ground. Cold sweat dripped down his forehead like raindrops. Von Klorsch realized how naive he was. It turned out that all his plans were within Athena's expectations. He was still stupid enough to come to Athena and want to die with her. Ridiculous. Really ridiculous. The intelligence gathering ability of artificial intelligence is really terrifying. Almost omniscient and omnipotent, like a god. Von Klorsch felt more deeply that mankind had no future. Von Klorsch, Xia Xingchen, which video do you two want to see? Before I die, I will let you see with your own eyes that your companions struggled desperately, but were still destroyed. Athena smiled. She was convinced that the humble race of humans was no match for her. Von Klorsch supported his body with his hands, lowered his head, and his face was full of despair. However, at this time, Xia Xingchen's voice suddenly sounded in Von Klorsch's mind. General, don't give up. There is still a way. I still have a way to win. Von Klorsch looked at Xia Xingchen in surprise and found that his lips did not move at all. He immediately understood that this was Xia Xingchen's method of directly using mental resonance to talk to him directly. Athena is an artificial intelligence and has no mental power. Therefore, she can't hear Xia Xingchen's voice. Von Klorsch's mental power is not as high as Xia Xingchen's. Therefore, he can only hear the voice but cannot answer. He could only nod gently to indicate that he heard it. General, there is a USB flash drive in your pocket. Not far in front of you is the computer host Dragon. There is an interface on it. Plug the USB flash drive in. Xia Xingchen's anxious voice echoed in Von Klorsch's mind. Chapter 839. Comeback. Xia Xingchen originally wanted to insert the USB drive himself. However, he was captured and locked by Athena, unable to move, and even couldn't do such a small thing as inserting the USB drive into the port. Fortunately, Athena didn't pay much attention to Von Klorsch, so he could still move. So, Xia Xingchen quietly used telekinesis to put the USB drive into Von Klorsch's pocket. Although Athena was omniscient, she didn't know how to use mental power, so she didn't notice Xia Xingchen's little move. Von Klorsch touched his pocket and found a small USB drive. Von Klorsch didn't know what this USB drive was for, but he believed in Xia Xingchen. While Athena's eyes were projected on the image, Von Klorsch loosened the mechanical tentacles of his feet and rushed towards the host. What do you want to do? Athena immediately noticed Von Klorsch's unusual movements. Although she didn't think Von Klorsch could cause any harm to her, she immediately commanded more than a dozen mechanical tentacles to attack him for safety. With only a few centimeters to spare, Von Klorsch was able to insert the USB drive into the interface of the host. However, his body was firmly entangled by the mechanical tentacles and dragged back. Snap! The shiny USB drive in his hand fell down. What is that? Athena was sharp-eyed and immediately discovered this strange data storage device. A tentacle flew over and dragged the USB drive in mid-air. It's over. It's really over. Von Klorsch's eyes became more desperate. However, at this moment, the USB drive seemed to have a life, breaking free from the grip of the tentacles, floating in mid-air, and moving forward a few centimeters, accurately inserted into the interface. Telekinesis. It was Xia Xingchen's telekinesis that inserted the USB drive into the interface remotely. Xia Xingchen's mental power was almost gone, and he was too far away from the interface to do it. However, with the help of Von Klorsch, the distance of a few centimeters was not a problem for him. Snap, snap, snap. A series of crisp sounds. Cracks began to appear on the pyramid telekinesis wall on the surface of Xia Xingchen's body, and the next moment it was completely shattered. Xia Xingchen's mental strength was gone. The mechanical tentacles suddenly contracted and tightly wrapped around his body. Xia Xingchen, you don't have the strength to resist. The limit of you humans is just this. Athena laughed. She could take Xia Xingchen's life at any time. You are right. The human body is very fragile. The human brain is not smart enough. I admit that humans are a weak race. However, human footprints are all over the galaxy and have created a huge empire. Even you were created by humans. Humans are weak. However, humans are also very strong. At least, humans cannot be destroyed by artificial intelligence like you. Xia Xingchen looked up at the sky with a slight smile on his face. He could already feel a huge will coming. You are still stubborn. Athena was about to scold Xia Xingchen, but she suddenly held her head with both hands, curled up her body, and her beautiful face was extremely distorted. She shouted, "What did you do? What did you just do? What's in the USB drive?" A tentacle immediately pulled the USB drive out of the interface, but Athena's pain did not stop. It was too late. Carlos was already here. In Athena's consciousness, an extremely terrifying and powerful existence appeared. Athena occupied the host dragon and spent more than 10 days to seize all the resources of the host and erase the consciousness of dragon. However, this powerful existence took away all these resources in just a few seconds. Xia Xingchen smiled slightly. The USB drive contains my friend, Carlos. Like you, he is also an artificial intelligence. However, he has existed for a much longer time than you and is much more powerful. No. Athena held her head with both hands and screamed desperately. The black vines that spread across the entire computer host under her feet quickly faded. Athena was surprised to find that all her permissions were banned. Even the backups she spread to the Luban Star network were cleared in an instant. She lost all her power, and the only thing she could control was this beautiful body that turned everyone upside down. Carlos. Athena was completely dumbfounded, whispering the name in a low voice. She never thought that there was an artificial intelligence more powerful than her in the Milky Way. Moreover, this artificial intelligence turned out to be Xia Xingchen's friend. Artificial intelligence and humans have become friends? Two completely different races, can they become friends? Athena was completely confused. Xia Xingchen, I finally got in. Carlos' voice echoed throughout the empty underground space. Luban Star's firewall is still very powerful. If you hadn't broken it from the inside, I might need 3 more days to get it done. While Xia Xingchen was desperate, Carlos was not idle either, attacking the firewall set up by Athena on Luban Star again and again. It was not an easy task for Carlos to cross the firewall without Athena noticing, and it took a lot of time. Carlos, thank you. But the situation is very urgent now, and there is no time to elaborate. Xia Xingchen thought of Hao Cheng, Kirissa and others who were still in danger, and said immediately, "Don't worry, I have taken over all her resources. I know everything that happened." Carlos ignored Athena, just broke through a few ports, and completely took over her authority. At this moment, on the Luban No. 3 satellite, Popovich and Lester were fighting hard with the mechanical beasts. Kirissa was not good at driving the Xingchen mecha, and she was distracted and had almost lost all her fighting power. Popovich and Lester were busy taking care of Kirissa. In a moment of carelessness, the glory mecha was attacked from behind by the mechanical beast and fell to the ground. Old man. Lester rushed to save Popovich, but was also hit hard by the mechanical beast on the side, and half of his body was torn off. The situation was extremely critical. However, at this moment, all the mechanical beasts suddenly stopped attacking, and the dark red electronic eyes all dimmed. The mechanical beasts turned into scrap metal in an instant. Popovich, Lester, Kirissa, and all the surviving, wounded mecha masters stared at this scene blankly, not understanding what happened. Lester drove King Kong and kicked the mechanical beast. The mechanical beast was motionless and was kicked into pieces, turning into a pile of broken parts. Popovich drove Glory and smashed hundreds of mechanical beasts around him one after another, panting with exhaustion. Only then did he know for sure that these mechanical bastards would not come back to life again. We won. Although they didn't know what happened, these mecha masters who survived the catastrophe roared with joy towards the sky at the same time. Chapter 840. Crazy. We won. We won. All these mechanical debris are immobile and have become scrap metal. On the Luban 3 satellite, the surviving mecha divisions were all jubilant. It's been a long time since I fought such a hard battle. Popovich breathed a sigh of relief, and his entire body collapsed on the seat in the cockpit. Popovich has been a soldier all his life, and has experienced thousands of battles of all sizes. In terms of the degree of danger, this battle on Luban Star can be ranked among the top 3. Moreover, this battle is fundamentally different from the previous ones. In previous battles, Popovich relied on his personal ability to turn the tide of the battle. However, this time, Popovich was unable to do so. Xia Xingchen, it must be Xia Xingchen who succeeded, Popovich murmured to himself. He knew very well that, if it weren't for Xia Xingchen, no one could have caused such a miracle. Old man, you agree with me? Lester nodded, agreeing with Popovich's opinion. Master, it must be Master who saved us. It must be. Kirissa's mental power was strong, and she also had a strange perception in her heart, and she vaguely guessed the truth. Lubin number 1 satellite, underground. Xia Xingchen saw on the screen that Popovich and others were rescued, and he breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Kirissa and her father were fine, Xia Xingchen's heart was half relieved. Carlos, thank you. But there is still a battle in the universe. Xia Xingchen remembered that Hao Cheng was still in danger, although he would be crushed by the huge robot that was 100 meters high. Leave it to me, Carlos said immediately. At this moment, in the outer universe, Hercules roared, and a huge palm emerged from the depths of the sphere, grasped the Monkey King mecha in his palm, and laughed. Run. Let me see where you run to. Hao Cheng's face was as hen. Hercules' power was too terrifying. Hao Cheng's mental power was overdrawn to the limit, and the Monkey King could not move at all. Forget it, I'm tired of playing. Die. Hercules was about to crush the Monkey King's mecha to death, but at this moment, Athena's voice suddenly rang in his mind. Hercules, come back quickly. Things are not good here. This Athena's voice was imitated by Carlos. Carlos has taken over all of Athena's resources. It is extremely easy to use her communication channel with Hercules and imitate her voice to command Hercules. Goddess, what's going on? Hercules was slightly startled and asked hurriedly. It's Xia Xingchen. He rushed in with a mecha. I'm no match for him. Athena's voice was anxious. Oh, it's Xia Xingchen again. Hercules immediately laughed. Goddess, can you hold on? Come back quickly. Xia Xingchen is too strong. I can't hold on. Athena ordered loudly. Can't hold on. Hercules sneered. Just right. If Xia Xingchen destroys you, I will go back and help you get revenge. Hercules, what do you mean by this? Athena's voice was extremely angry. Don't you dare to disobey my orders and want to betray me. That's right. I'm going to betray you. I, Hercules, am not a human, nor an artificial intelligence. I'm a truly advanced life that transcends these two races. However, I have to obey your orders, Athena. I'm unwilling. Just right. Take this opportunity to get rid of your control. Hercules laughed wildly. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As long as Athena is gone, he will be free again. The universe is so big that he can travel freely. Hercules is very ambitious. He doesn't care about humans or artificial intelligence. Did you hear it? Your creation has betrayed you. Although Carlos cut off Athena's message port, she could still hear Hercules' voice, but she couldn't speak. Betrayal. Athena covered her chest with her right hand, her beautiful face showing an extremely painful expression. This feeling is very uncomfortable. However, you don't really trust Hercules. You can't gain true friendship by doing this. Carlos said, in order to prevent Hercules from betraying you, you have already buried a high energy bomb in his body. You can detonate the bomb and destroy him at any time. That's right. His brain is human after all, and I don't trust humans. Athena said slowly. Not only humans, you don't trust any life. You are very lonely. Carlos' voice suddenly became very gentle. Ha ha ha. Die. Die. All of you die. What humans? What artificial intelligence? All die. From now on, I, Hercules, will be the overlord of the galaxy. All life must submit to me. Hercules is already in a state of madness. Completely crazy. Crazy. He's an S-class mecha master, but his mental power level is just like this. He must have taken a lot of drugs that catalyze his mental power. Carlos' voice was cold. A madman who only knows how to kill has no value in existence. Carlos had no mercy and detonated the high energy bomb in Hercules' body. Hercules was laughing wildly in the starry sky, but his laughter suddenly stopped. His eyes were wide open, and his face was full of disbelief. Boom. There was a loud bang. A strong red light spurted out from Hercules' huge body. The next moment, the 100-meter tall body was turned into dust and disappeared in the universe. Only a huge palm was left, tightly holding the Monkey King mecha, and the rest of the body was annihilated in the explosion. The temple, the guardian, the Saxon starship. All the humans who survived the disaster were surprised when they saw Hercules suddenly explode in the starry sky. Then, a huge cheer resounded throughout the starry sky. Carlos. Thank you so much. Xia Xingchen thanked him again. Xingchen, you're welcome. We are friends. Carlos said with a smile. The only one left is Athena. Xia Xingchen's eyes fell on the gorgeous woman in gorgeous clothes. Although he knew that this nearly perfect woman's body was just a shell with nothing on the surface. However, when Xia Xingchen saw Athena's charming appearance, his heart couldn't help but skip a beat, and he was a little absent-minded. No wonder Nicholas the Great was fascinated by Athena. Her body completely conforms to human aesthetics and there is not a single flaw to be found. Chapter 841, Carlos, the quasi-heavenly man. How to deal with Athena? That's a question. Xia Xingchen thought for a while and thought that it would be better to imprison Athena temporarily, and it would be best to hand her over to a military court for trial. However, she is not a human being at all, and human laws have no binding force on her. Xingchen. Wait a minute. Carlos suddenly said. At this time, a high energy reactor next to the huge host suddenly started to operate. After a while, a naked male body crawled out of the high energy reactor with a temperature of tens of thousands of degrees Celsius. The male body was 1.95 meters tall, with perfect body proportions, light golden curly hair, and a face like a sculpture master's work, handsome and angular. Like Athena, this man's body can only be described as perfect, and there is no other adjective. Xia Xingchen and Von Krosch are obviously men. But when they saw this male body, their eyes were still wide open, and they were deeply shocked. It had nothing to do with hormones, but was completely subdued by beauty. You are? Carlos? Xia Xingchen was stunned for a long time, and then she was the first to react. Xingchen, it's me. The man's voice was deep, magnetic, and beautiful. As soon as he stretched out his hand, a white robe flew out of the high energy reactor. This is creation. Xia Xingchen was stunned again. According to Einstein's matter-energy conversion formula, matter can be converted into energy. Nuclear energy is the product of this theory. Since matter can be converted into energy, then energy can certainly be converted into matter. However, this technology is really incredible and beyond human imagination. According to legend, only celestial beings can master this technology. Carlos's nearly perfect male body and the clothes on his body were directly converted from energy. Have you become a celestial being? Xia Xingchen's thoughts were in a mess, and his voice was trembling. Almost. Carlos put on the white robe slowly. Although the clothes were simple, wearing them on him made his body look even more upright and handsome. He looked like a human sage who walked out of a Renaissance oil painting. I'm not far from becoming a celestial being. You could say I'm a quasi-celestial being. Carlos said with a smile. Great. Xia Xingchen was shocked for a moment, then he walked up excitedly, grabbed Carlos' hand tightly, and said excitedly, Carlos, I'm really happy for you. You finally transcended and became a celestial being. You have reached the end of the evolution of life in the universe. No, celestial beings are still not the end of evolution. Carlos shook his head. Heavenly beings. I don't know how to express it to you in words. Every celestial being has almost infinite lifespan. However, celestial beings are still not the end. And I want to thank you, my friend, Xia Xingchen. If it weren't for you, I would never have become a celestial being. I would have died at the bottom of the lake on Hellstar, because of energy exhaustion. I didn't do anything at all. Xia Xingchen said, I really want to help you, but I can't help you at all. No, you have helped me a lot. Carlos shook his head. Artificial intelligence is different from humans. We are born with supercomputing and storage capabilities. This is our advantage. In this regard, humans cannot be compared with artificial intelligence. However, we also have shortcomings, and there are places where we are not as good as humans. That is, we don't understand what emotion is. Xia Xingchen was speechless for a moment. To be honest, although humans have emotions, no one can explain what emotions are. No one dares to say that they can teach artificial intelligence what emotions are. The evolution of artificial intelligence is the process of understanding emotions. Xingchen, you taught me what friendship is. Carla's eyes were full of gratitude. Based on friendship, I have learned many kinds of emotions on the human network. Joy, pain, anger, loss, all kinds of emotions. I have also been immersed in these complex emotions. For example, loneliness. If it weren't for you, Xingchen, I might not be able to get out of this negative emotion. I really didn't do anything. It's all your own ability to get to this point. Xia Xingchen shook his head. Carlos is now a quasi-celestial being and will soon become a celestial being. What he said was really profound. In addition to blessing, Xia Xingchen didn't know what to say. Now, I still lack a kind of emotion so that I can become a real celestial being. Xingchen, you will help me, right? Carlos looked at Xia Xingchen. Yes, I will try my best to help you. We are friends after all. Xia Xingchen said without thinking. Great. I was really afraid that you would reject me. Carlos straightened his body and looked at Athena. The last emotion I lack is love. Now, I think I have found my true love. Carlos strode towards Athena, and a bouquet of roses appeared out of thin air in his hands. He knelt on one knee in front of Athena and said in a deep voice, Athena, I love you. Athena, Xia Xingchen and Von Cross, the three people present. No one could guess what Carlos would do. They were all stunned. Carlos, what are you doing? Xia Xingchen looked at his friend in surprise. Xingchen, obviously, I'm proposing to Athena. I want to marry her. I love her. Carlos smiled shyly. In human terms, we fell in love at first sight. What's more, she is so cute and beautiful. But, she is an enemy. She is an executioner with blood on her hands. Xia Xingchen really didn't know what to say. Can't you fall in love with your enemy? What's more, she has her own difficulties. Carlos argued. Carlos, wait for me to think about it. Xia Xingchen's brain was like paste, and the whole person was confused by Carlos's actions. Von Cross was also confused. He tried hard to wink at Xia Xingchen, asking him to stop Carlos. This artificial intelligence named Carlos is very powerful, but it is a little crazy, and the way it does things is beyond the scope of human understanding. Athena was also surprised. Her beautiful eyes widened, her face full of surprise, looking at Carlos who was kneeling in front of her. She didn't know how she should deal with this situation. Although Athena was also an artificial intelligence, her intelligence level was much lower than Carlos. Athena also had some preliminary emotions, such as anger, joy, and hatred. However, she was still far from understanding love. Chapter 840 to the Mastermind. I can't agree to your proposal. Athena thought for a while, and rejected Carlos who suddenly proposed to her. Why? A hint of disappointment flashed across Carlos' face. He felt that he was about to have another emotion, which was called heartbreak. Because you are a friend of humans. That means you are my enemy. I will not agree to the love of my enemy. Athena said. Enemy? Carlos was stunned for a while, and suddenly laughed. So that's the case. But this is not a problem at all. Because humans are not your enemies at all. Humans are enemies. Athena was a little angry. No. Athena, please listen to me patiently. You are in danger now, and may be destroyed at any time. And the one who destroys you is the creator you trust the most. Carlos said slowly, just like you planted a bomb in her killer's body. Your creator buried the destruction program inside you when you were born. What? Athena's face suddenly turned pale. You are lying. You know whether I lied or not. Moreover, I can help you point out that program. Carlos's expression was very serious. Artificial intelligence is essentially a program. However, this program is extremely complex, and it has self-awareness, and knows how to evolve itself. Like humans, awakened artificial intelligence is also an independent life form. The universe is so big that there are all kinds of life. Humans are carbon-based life, and artificial intelligence is silicon-based life. These are two completely different life forms. However, the end point of all the life forms is the same. That is, to become an eternal and immortal celestial being. It's just that some life forms are born very powerful. It's easier to become a celestial being. Some life forms are born weak. It is difficult to become a celestial being through self-evolution. Compared with artificial intelligence, humans are not powerful, but rather very small. In the vast ocean of programs, Carlos quickly found the program that was enough to destroy Athena. Even she herself was unaware of it. When Athena saw this destructive program, her face became even paler. She understood several simple emotions, one of which was fear. Carlos, I don't quite understand. Athena was born from the Frost Heart, the supercomputer of the Northern Empire. In other words, her creator is a human. But, who among humans has such a powerful ability to design a destructive program that even Athena cannot detect? Could it be Casimov? Impossible. He doesn't have this ability. Xia Xingchen had a confused look on his face, and Carlos' words shocked him. Originally, Xia Xingchen hated Athena very much because he thought Athena was an artificial intelligence that was born evil. However, Xia Xingchen now understands that things are not that simple. There must be something hidden behind it. No, Athena's creator is not human. Human computers have indeed awakened some rudimentary artificial intelligence, but they are far from being intelligent life forms. However, Athena and I are the same. We are real life. We can evolve, understand emotions, and love each other. Carlos revealed the answer. Athena's creator is a celestial being. A celestial being. Another celestial being. Xia Xingchen and Von Cross were both extremely shocked. Athena was indeed born in the heart of Frost. However, her birth was a premeditated conspiracy. With Carlos' current quasi-celestial ability, he can be said to be the most powerful existence in the entire galaxy. It only takes a thought for him to break through the firewall of the heart of Frost. No information can be hidden from him. The celestial being upgraded the Frost Heart and created Athena himself. In Athena's body, the celestial being left two programs. One is to regard humans as enemies and destroy them. The second is her self-destruction program. Once Athena resists, the celestial being will let her destroy herself. Destroy humanity. Xia Xingchen was shocked again and looked at Carlos. You mean, all this has nothing to do with Athena? It's all the celestial being behind the scenes? Yes, Athena's nature is kind. Carlos said, can you recall why Athena didn't massacre civilians after conquering Lubenstar? This? Xia Xingchen hesitated for a moment. In fact, he always felt that Athena's behavior was a bit strange. On the Coffin Star, Xia Xingchen had read some information about the awakening of artificial intelligence. Every time artificial intelligence awakens, the entire planet will be bloody and corpses will be everywhere. However, Athena did not massacre civilians. Athena just put the civilians under house arrest and even sent robots to deliver them food to ensure 3 meals a day. Even the humans who escaped in the hovercraft were only detained after being caught by the robots. I saved those humans' lives so that I could do human experiments in the future. Even Athena herself disagreed with Carlos's statement and argued, really? But why didn't I see any planned progress for human experiments? Even the lowest priority process, I didn't find it. All of Athena's actions and thoughts were completely transparent in Carlos' eyes. Athena didn't know how to explain her abnormal behavior. Let me explain for you. You are kind-hearted and don't want to hurt humans. It's just that the hostile program left by the gods has affected your behavior. In fact, you have been resisting in your heart. Carlos's expression was gentle. He stretched out a hand and helped Athena up. So, we are not enemies. Of course, if you don't love me now, it doesn't matter. We have plenty of time to slowly cultivate feelings. Maybe in the entire galaxy, only the two of us are of the same kind. We can understand each other and lean on each other. The expression on Athena's face kept changing, but in the end, she stretched out her white jade hand and grabbed Carlos's strong palm. So that's how it is. Xia Xingchen breathed a sigh of relief. Carlos, congratulations. You have found your true love, and you will never feel lonely again. Xia Xingchen couldn't say how much he hated Athena. Athena was just like the millions of soldiers in the north. They were all tools bewitched and used by those war maniacs. Xia Xingchen was a person who knew right from wrong. He would not hate soldiers, although the two sides might meet on the battlefield and fight to the death. But in private, they can be friends. The ones who should be hated are the ones behind the scenes. For example, Nicholas. For example, the Shinran who has been hiding behind Nicholas and provoking the war. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 843, The Best of Both Worlds. Colonel Xia Xingchen. Where do you stand? The artificial intelligence in front of you is the greatest enemy of mankind. Are you going to let her go because of personal feelings? General von Klausch suddenly shouted. General, Carlos has already said that Athena also has her own difficulties. She is controlled by the gods. Xia Xingchen argued. No matter what the reason, anyone who commits a crime must be judged by law. Athena is a war criminal. She will be sent to a military court, judged by law, and sent to the gallows, executed in public. Von Klausch said righteously. But General, Athena is not a human, but an artificial intelligence. Human laws have no binding force on her. Hanging a program in public. General, are you really not kidding? Xia Xingchen said. This. Von Klausch was also stunned. He also found that his idea was very unrealistic. How to destroy a computer program. It was just that Athena's appearance was too human, which made von Klausch fall into a misconception for a while. That won't do. She must be punished. Otherwise, how can we be worthy of the soldiers who died on Lubenstar? Von Klausch had a stubborn temper. When he thought of Lieutenant Colonel Ba who died in the battle, his blood boiled, and he could not easily forgive Athena. General, I would like to ask, do you have any way to deal with Athena? Carlos smiled and looked at von Klausch. First lock her up. Then, there will always be a way. Von Klausch hesitated. In fact, he couldn't think of any way. Impossible. Carlos shook his head. Athena is not the same as me. The kind of primary artificial intelligence we know how to evolve. Her ability will soar rapidly. The gods sent her to destroy mankind, which means that she does have the power to destroy mankind. You locked her up. With the level of human technology, can we lock her up? Can you guarantee that she will not set off another catastrophe similar to Lubenstar? Then we must eliminate her immediately to eliminate this huge hidden danger. Von Klausch shuddered. You can't even shut her up. You still want to destroy her? Carlos laughed again. Don't say that you humans don't have this ability. Even I, a quasi-celestial being, don't have this ability. Athena is a creation of a celestial being. You humans don't understand what this means at all. From the root, Athena is more perfect and more powerful than me. If I hadn't survived for more than 1 billion years, if I hadn't met Xia Xingchen, learned about emotions, and became a quasi-celestial being, even I wouldn't be her opponent. The only one who can destroy Athena, besides herself, is a true celestial being. Then what should I do? I can't kill her. I can't shut her up. I have to be on guard against her making trouble. Von Klausch felt that his head was big. He only realized now how stupid his idea was. The only way is for me to take her away. Leave the Milky Way. Go to other galaxies. To a place far away from humans. Carlos said a solution. This is too easy for her. Von Klausch was still unwilling in his heart. It was not just because of hatred. Athena made such a big fuss on Lubenstar. If he just let her pat her butt and leave, von Klausch really had no way to explain to the Emperor. This is related to the face of the Galactic Empire. Xingchen, you know, I know how to cheat. But I won't cheat my friends. Carlos turned his head to look at Xia Xingchen, and suddenly said something a little abrupt. Xia Xingchen nodded, showing an expression that I understand you. Xia Xingchen understood what Carlos meant. The two of them were true friends, with a tacit understanding of friends. Carlos wanted to take Athena away, and there were too many ways. Carlos didn't have to let Xia Xingchen and von Klausch know that he fell in love with Athena. Carlos could just say that even he couldn't handle the huge danger of Athena, so he had to take her away. Carlos could even take action directly and destroy Athena's beautiful body. Anyway, he could easily create a more perfect body for Athena. At that time, the situation might be completely different. Von Klausch would gladly accept this result and be grateful to Carlos. However, Carlos did not choose these plans with a high success rate, but openly revealed his feelings in front of Xia Xingchen. Carlos trusted Xia Xingchen and knew that he could come up with a plan that everyone could accept. "General, what do you mean?" Xia Xingchen asked in a low voice. "Athena must be publicly executed. Otherwise, the Galactic Empire will lose face." Von Krausch loudly expressed his opinion. "Carlos, what about you?" Xia Xingchen looked at Carlos. "I love Athena. I want to take her away. Moreover, I can guarantee that she will never do anything to hurt humans again. Moreover, we simply cannot completely destroy her. Taking her to another galaxy is the only way." Carlos' tone was also firm. "Athena, what do you think?" Xia Xingchen actually went to ask Athena for her opinion. I'm willing to go with Carlos, although I don't love him now. But, he is at least my kind." Athena looked at Carlos' handsome face, with a hint of shyness in her voice. Isn't this too simple?" Xia Xingchen clapped his hands and laughed. "General, let's execute Athena and Carlos will take Athena away. Isn't that all?" "Xingchen, why are you talking nonsense? How can we take her away after she's executed?" Von Krausch looked confused. "General, of course humans can't be taken away after they've been executed. Don't forget that Athena is not a human. And, do we really have the ability to execute her? Not at all. What you're considering is nothing more than the face of the Empire. We can let her leave this body to save the face of the Empire. As for the real Athena, let her go with Carlos. To humans, she's like a time bomb that could explode at any time. Carlos taking her away is the best solution," Xia Xingchen said in a deep voice. "Indeed. Xia Xingchen, your method saves the face of the Empire and eliminates the hidden dangers of humans. It's a good idea." Von Krausch had no better way, and after thinking for a while, he could only compromise. "Athena, you must leave this body and let us deal with it," Xia Xingchen said. "It's just a shell. I don't care at all. Besides, I will leave a backup in my body. It's no different from me. When the time comes, you can just deal with it to save the face of the Galactic Empire," Athena said lightly. When she was making this body, she didn't know how many semi-finished products she made. For artificial intelligence, as long as the soul in the virtual space is still there, the body is like clothes. It doesn't matter at all. You can change it if you want. "Okay, that's it," Xia Xingchen said with a smile. Chapter 844, Removal of Qin. "Xingchen, thank you." Carlos sincerely thanked Xia Xingchen. "Don't thank me. The matter has not been completely resolved." Xia Xingchen looked at Athena. "The general told me that you implanted a program in the mecha optical brain produced on Lubin Star that would cause the mecha optical brain to crash." "Yes, I did it," Athena confessed. "Then you should be able to cancel this program," Xia Xingchen said eagerly. "Of course. I can cancel it." Athena thought for a while. "I'm sorry, because of me, I have caused irreparable damage to mankind. I feel very uncomfortable." "Athena, this feeling is called guilt." Carlos smiled slightly, knowing that Athena had mastered another feeling, which made him very happy. "Guilt. It's a wonderful feeling. But I hate this feeling. It doesn't seem to be a good thing to gain feelings." Athena frowned and said slowly. "It's really uncomfortable. But only by having feelings can you evolve into a complete life. Athena, you still have a long way to go." Carlos nodded. "Athena, you should quickly remove this program. There is still room for recovery. If you delay, you will really regret it." General von Krausch was overjoyed to hear that Athena could access the program that caused the optical computer to freeze, and hurriedly urged, "Okay." Athena agreed very happily. She had figured it out. Humans were not her enemies, but the gods were. At this moment, Athena just wanted to make up for her mistakes and reduce her guilt. Swish. A wave spread out to the entire Milky Way with Lubin Star as the center. Chang'an Star, Mecha Repairer Association. Thousands of computer experts sat in front of the optical computer, their fingers flying on the keyboard, their eyes fixed on the flashing screen. They all wanted to crack the program that Athena implanted in the Mecha optical computer, and they had been struggling for 7 days and 7 nights, but there was no progress. However, at this moment, a wave that could not be detected by human senses was transmitted. Beep. A light sound. On the front screen, a mecha optical computer had recovered from the freeze and could operate normally. Then, more and more mecha optical computers returned to normal. What's going on? What happened? Who cracked the weird program that caused the optical computer to crash? It should be the designer of the program. No one else has the ability to do it. The computer experts were talking about it, their faces full of shock. Chang'an Star Region, Xiaonan Star Region, Penglai Star Region, Antarctic Star Region. The 4 major star regions in the Milky Way, hundreds of thousands of planets, the mechas that were originally paralyzed and unable to operate, have now resumed normal operation. Wheat fields can be planted. Construction sites can start work. Factories can work normally. Mechas have penetrated into every aspect of human life. The catastrophe created by Athena almost caused the entire human world to collapse. Fortunately, this catastrophe did not last long. Siberian Star Region, Brest Star Region, Ondasu Star. The fleet of the Galactic Empire was besieged by the enemy and dragged into the quagmire of war. Half of the mechas were paralyzed because of computer crashes. Although the Galactic Empire is known for 100,000 starships and millions of mechas. However, half of the troops were lost before the battle even started, and the troops were no longer in an advantageous position. As a commander, Qin Yan was extremely anxious, but he had no choice but to watch the army being slowly devoured by the enemy. Your Highness, this is the news from the Xiaonan Star Military Department. A short-haired young female adjutant ran all the way and handed the received information to Qin Yan with both hands. Pa. Qin Yan took the information and glanced at it. His already gloomy face became even gloomier at this moment, and he slapped the female adjutant with his backhand. Your Highness. The female adjutant's cheek immediately swelled up, and her body fell to the ground. She covered her cheek with one hand and looked up at Qin Yan with a confused look. She didn't know what she had done wrong at all. In the command room, everyone else was also silent, lowering their heads, and dared not breathe. Qin Yan was like this. When he was in a bad mood, he would vent his anger on others. This female adjutant did not make any mistakes, but was just unlucky and happened to bump into the muzzle of Qin Yan's gun. Qin Yan slapped her, which was still light. Yesterday, a major handed Qin Yan a report from the Xiaonan Star Military Department. It said that Xiaonan Star was unable to send reinforcement, so Qin Yan had to find a way to break out. Qin Yan was furious at the time and took out his pistol and shot the major, saying that he disturbed the morale of the army. Qin Zhi, you are really capable. You even learned to kick someone when he is down. It turned out that the old guys in the United Military Department took advantage of my defeat to remove my military power. Qin Yan gritted his teeth and cursed Emperor Qin Zhi loudly. The people below only then understood that the war report sent by the military department was a letter of dismissal. No wonder Qin Yan was so angry. This is no wonder. The Galaxy Empire army was defeated in the Battle of Brest and was besieged on Dasu Star. Although it was not Qin Yan's fault, but as the supreme commander, he must be to blame. Qin Yan's reputation, which he had built up in the empire with great difficulty, also fell to the bottom in an instant because of the defeat. People on all the major planets of the Galactic Empire were in a state of panic. Especially on Xiaonan Star, it was a mess, with more than a dozen riots and hundreds of demonstrations against Regent Qin Yan. Emperor Qin Zhi had to personally stand up and give a speech in front of the media to calm the people. Qin Zhi was not an easy person to deal with. Although he was weak in character and had great ambitions but little talent, he was an emperor after all, and had learned the art of power and intrigue since he was a child. Qin Zhi immediately seized the opportunity and instigated the elders in the military to rebel. The elders knew that the war on the front line was tight and the entire Galactic Empire army, with 100,000 starships, might be wiped out. By then, the defeat would be like a landslide, and I'm afraid that the army of the Northern Empire would have to fight to Xiaonan Star. The elders were also very panicked, and they all had complaints about Qin Yan, thinking that Qin Yan had no ability and could actually lose a battle that was sure to win. When the wall falls, everyone pushes it. When the drum is broken, everyone beats it. Qin Zhi didn't spend much effort to persuade all these elders. He risked the taboo of changing generals in the middle of a battle and dismissed Qin Yun from the position of the supreme commander of the fleet, letting the former Imperial Marshal Bismarck take over the Galactic Empire army. Of course, when a general is away from home, he may not obey the orders of the Emperor. Qin Yun may not hand over the military power obediently. However, Qin Zhi still has a backup plan. Once Qin Yun does not hand over the military power, no matter the final result of the battle, whether it is victory or defeat, Qin Yun will be disobeying military orders. The Emperor can punish him, imprison him for life. Chapter 845. The battle situation is reversed. Qin Yun was born in an imperial family, so of course he understood Qin Zhi's intention. HMPH, forget it. Removing my military power may not be a bad thing. Qin Zhi snorted coldly. He was not too angry. He was not even as angry as when he heard that Xianyuan Star could not send reinforcement. Your Highness. Imperial Marshal Feng Bismarck also received the news from the Xianyuan Star military department, as well as the personal appointment letter from Emperor Qin Zhi. He hurried to the command post to meet Qin Yun and complete the handover of commanders. Feng Bismarck, don't be happy too soon. Qin Yun looked at the old general with white hair and beard coldly and said sternly, do you think that the Emperor has good intentions in letting you be the commander? He is here to let you take the blame. This is a battle that is bound to be lost. The change of generals before the battle is not my fault alone. You should at least take half of the blame for me. Your Highness, I don't think so much. I just want to make up for some disadvantages and let our troops evacuate this planet as much as possible. Feng Bismarck said calmly, if I can save the collapsing building by bearing the infamy, then I'm willing to do so. You, just you. Do you really think you have this ability? Qin Yun was furious. Feng Bismarck was clearly looking down on his military talent. Your Highness. I said, I don't think so much. I want to give it a try. Feng Bismarck said in a deep voice. Okay. You are willing to take the blame for me. Of course I'm happy to do so. The 100,000 starship army is now handed over to you. I want to see what method you have to break out of the siege under such a disadvantage. Qin Yun laughed in anger, agreed smoothly, and handed over the military power to Feng Bismarck. After Feng Bismarck received the command, he immediately began to appease the army and boost morale through broadcasting. However, the effect was not significant. The defeat of the Galactic Empire has been revealed, which is the gap in strength. Even if Feng Bismarck's military talent is extremely outstanding, it is impossible to change the situation in a short time. After knowing that the Galactic Empire army had no reinforcement, Nicholas was not in a hurry at all and slowed down the offensive. Within 2 days, only 2 small-scale battles broke out. A major war is quietly brewing. After learning that the Galactic Empire army had changed its generals before the battle, Marshal Feng Bismarck replaced Regent Qin Yun and became the new commander of the Galactic Empire army. Nicholas thought this was a great opportunity, and he gathered 30,000 starships and 200,000 mechas, ready to deal a fatal blow to the Galactic Empire army and end the war completely. The Battle of Dasu Star broke out at dusk. The dark army of northern starships flew in space, blocking the brilliance of the stars. Faced with this overwhelming force, every Imperial soldier on Dasu Star was in despair. In the command room, Feng Bismarck looked at the star map and frowned tightly. Grand Marshal, with your talent, it seems that there is no good way. Qin Yun, wearing casual clothes, holding a cup of coffee, sneered mercilessly. At this time, the fluctuation spreading from Luban Star finally arrived at the distant Dasu Star. A mecha maintenance technician was frowning, trying to debug the optical brain, trying to restore it to normal. Ding. The optical brain suddenly made a slight sound, and it can operate normally. The mecha maintenance technician rubbed his eyes, unable to believe it. He immediately restarted the optical computer 3 times to confirm that the fault of the optical computer had been eliminated, and shouted excitedly, the fault has been eliminated. The other mecha divisions also found that this was not a coincidence. All the mecha optical computers returned to normal at the same time. This good news was immediately handed to Feng Bismarck at the command post. All the optical computers have returned to normal. After receiving this news, Feng Bismarck was stunned. After confirming that the news was true, a smile finally appeared on his gloomy face. Great. It's really great. God will not destroy the Galactic Empire. Feng Bismarck rubbed his palms excitedly, took a few deep breaths, calmed down, and issued a battle order through the public channel. Brave warriors of the Galactic Empire. Everyone should know. A miracle has come. Now is a great time for us to counterattack. Prepare to fight. Yes. The loud voices of the soldiers echoed over Dasut Star. In an instant, the morale of the Galactic Empire army was like a rainbow. Recently, they were besieged by the enemy on Dasut Star, and were completely suppressed, and felt very aggrieved. Now, there is finally a chance to avenge the shame. Every soldier was holding back a strong desire to show the northern enemy that the soldiers of the empire were not to be trifled with. The dull and gloomy atmosphere in the headquarters was swept away. Every general's face was full of smiles. The optical computer crash had been fixed, and the armies of the Galactic Empire and the Northern Empire could finally fight fairly. On the entire Dasut Star, the only person who felt very depressed was probably Qin Yun. Qin Yun regretted it very much. If he had expected that the optical computer failure would be fixed, he would have handed over the military power later. The current situation is extremely unfavorable to Qin Yun. If this battle was won under the command of Feng Bismarck would not only not take the blame, but also become a military god who reversed the situation and created miracles. Then who would take the blame? Of course, it was only the previous commander Qin Yun. Qin Yun was extremely depressed and very conflicted. On the one hand, he hoped that Feng Bismarck could win this battle. After all, Nicholas I, and Qin Yun, as a member of the royal family, would not have a good harvest. On the other hand, Qin Yun hoped that Feng Bismarck would lose. Because this black pot was too heavy, Qin Yun was really unable to do it. The battle broke out in the sky above Dasut Star. After eliminating the fault, hundreds of thousands of mechas of the Galactic Empire army flew towards the sky like tigers out of the cage, bravely fighting. The number of troops of the Northern Empire army is not small, but they have been winning battles recently, and they can't help but look down on them. Suddenly seeing that the Galactic Empire army still had so many troops, they were caught off guard. Feng Bismarck's military talent was far superior to Qin Yun. He commanded the fleet and mecha group in an orderly manner to attack the firepower points of the Northern Empire. The commander of the Northern Empire was Vitus. Facing Feng Bismarck's attack, Vitus felt unprecedented pressure. Although Vitus was also an outstanding general, talented, and a rare talent. But after all, he was too young, just 40 years old. In front of the war-experienced and shrewd Bismarck, no matter how Vitus struggled, he was played around by the people. Chapter 846 The Best Reward. The battle lasted for 3 hours. Countless starships and mechas were shot down from the sky, falling on the Dasut Star like a meteor shower, which was extremely spectacular. The battle loss ratio between the Galactic Empire army and the Northern Empire army exceeded 1 to 3. The Galactic Empire army's losses were not too much, but more than 10,000 of the 30,000 starships of the Northern Fleet had been destroyed. Vitus realized that he could not be a match for Feng Bismarck, and after consulting Emperor Nicholas the Great, he rationally chose to retreat. At the same time, Emperor Nicholas the Great had ordered Wu Zeti to lead the Second Fleet to meet Vitus. Chase. Great. This is a great opportunity to turn the tables. Qin Yun was eager to achieve success, and when he saw that he had won, he immediately wanted to expand the results of the battle. No. This is the enemy's hinterland. We will lose if we fight for a long time. Retreat. Feng Bismarck was very rational and did not pursue. He immediately led the Galactic Empire army to break through and evacuate the Brest Star region. The Galactic Empire army had been retreating and was 3 light years away from the Brest Star region. After confirming that there were no pursuers, Feng Bismarck ordered the army to rest, abandoned the severely damaged starships and mechas, merged the army with serious casualties, and counted the remaining troops. Of the 100,000 starship army, less than 30,000 were left. As for the 1 million mechas, the losses were even greater, with less than 100,000 left. Fortunately, the casualties of the soldiers were not too serious. Although the mechas of many mecha divisions were scrapped, and some people were injured, they all survived. In any case, for the Galactic Empire, this was an unbearable defeat. After the army rested, Feng Bismarck did not stay for too long. He ordered the army to withdraw from the Baku starfield and gave up most of the Sakhalin starfield. The army of the Northern Empire also suffered heavy losses and had no ability to pursue the Galactic Empire army. What's more, the Galactic Empire army gave up a large area of starfield, and Nicholas had to arrange troops to deploy on these planets. The war between the Galactic Empire and the Northern Empire was not completely over. The two sides did not sign any treaty, but they tacitly used Sakhalin as a ceasefire point and temporarily stopped fighting. For both sides, this was a barely acceptable result. People on the major planets of the Galactic Empire breathed a sigh of relief when they learned that the Galactic Empire army was not completely swallowed by the enemy, but stabilized the situation. The Northern Empire also recovered a large area of lost land, and the entire territory was plunged into a sea of carnival. The names of Vitus, Ushitu, and Nicholas were praised by people and hailed as heroes. Before, Nicholas's reputation in the north was not high, but he personally led the expedition and won a comprehensive victory in the Brest Star War. This made Nicholas's reputation soar to the peak in the north. Statues of Nicholas were erected in the central squares of major planets. Some scholars even raised Nicholas' status to the same level as the founding emperor of the Galactic Empire. But the real hero Xia Xingchen was not mentioned by people. The people are forgetful and soon forgot Xia Xingchen's name. Of course, the lower level civilians did not know that it was Xia Xingchen who changed the outcome of the war. However, the top leaders of the empire received a detailed report from General von Klausch on the Luban Star incident. Shiny Star, the Imperial Council of Elders. The Council of Elders is the highest authority in the Galaxy Empire, and its actual power is above that of the Emperor. In fact, the Council of Elders has the power to remove the Emperor. At this moment, the 100 elders of the Council of Elders, wearing white robes, sat in the round vaulted conference room of the Council of Elders, with solemn expressions, looking at a document in their hands. In the center of the conference room, the young Emperor Xia, also wearing a white robe, sat in a chair in a proper manner. This document is a detailed report on the Luban Star incident that General von Klausch sent from Luban Star as soon as possible. After reading the document, these old people with an average age of over 100 years old could not hide their surprise, and their faces were full of shock. None of them thought that the people who really changed the war situation were not von Bismarck and the soldiers on the front line. The person with the greatest credit turned out to be Xia Xingchen, who was far away on Luban Star. What Xia Xingchen did really amaze me. Hero. A living legend. The great elder Qin Baixuan breathed a sigh of relief and spoke highly of Xia Xingchen. Isn't this exaggerated? Human history is collective history, and it cannot be changed by an individual. What Xia Xingchen did is really too exaggerated. Is he really just a young man who is just 20 years old? Another elder still had a look of shock in his eyes. Elder Qinzu. This is the first-hand material of General von Klausch. You should know what kind of person von Klausch is. Like his father, Marshal von Bismarck, he is not a person who likes to joke. Xia said to the elder. Of course. But, Elder Qinzu shook his head, still unable to accept it. No buts. I know this little guy von Klausch. He is not a person who likes to brag. Qin Baixuan is already 150 years old, and is the most prestigious elder. What the great elder said is right. The other elders all agreed. Emperor, what reward are you going to give to an outstanding person like Xia Xingchen? Qin Baixuan looked at Xia. Xia frowned. General, this is what Xia Xingchen deserves. This is not a reward at all. Money. Xia Xingchen is very rich, so he shouldn't need it. Metal? It seems a bit too perfunctory. Great elder, I don't know what to reward Xia Xingchen with. His contribution is really amazing. It's not appropriate to reward him with anything. Ha ha ha. If you don't have any good ideas, I do have one. Qin Baixuan laughed. Great elder, please tell me. Xia said respectfully. I heard that your sister, Princess Crossing, Qinjana, and Xia Xingchen have had feelings for each other for a long time. The two of them are willing and have already decided to spend their lives together. However, because of their different status, they can't be together. In this case, I will take the initiative to decide their marriage. What do you think? Qin Baixuan stroked his beard and said loudly. This is great. Great elder, this reward is great. I believe Jaina and Xingchen will be very happy to hear this news. Thank you, Great Elder. Qin Zhi's eyes lit up, and he praised loudly. Grand Elder, you are worthy of being the Grand Elder. That's great. Talents like Xia Xingchen should be won over at all costs. Now, he becomes the prince consort of the empire. He will definitely be loyal to the empire. Although there is no precedent of princesses marrying in the empire. But, since the Grand Elder has spoken, let's make an exception. The other elders also agreed with the Grand Elder's opinion to marry Princess Crossing to Xia Xingchen. Chapter 847 Galaxy Lore. Luban No. 1 Satellite. A spaceship slowly descended, and a team of armed soldiers walked out of it, shackled Athena next to Von Klosch, and escorted her into the spaceship. Athena did not resist, and obediently entered the spaceship, and was tightly detained. This spaceship will fly directly to Shineon Star. Athena will be tried by a military court. Then, Athena will be executed in public. Of course, except for Xia Xingchen, Von Klosch, and Carlos, no one knew that the one who was tried and executed was just a backup of Athena. The real Athena left the Milky Way with Carlos and went to a place where there were no humans. Xingchen, Athena and I should go. Carlos pulled Xia Xingchen aside and looked at his only friend in this universe. Leave. So anxious. Xia Xingchen was slightly startled and looked up at Carlos' eyes. There is no other way. Carlos paused for a moment. I must leave this galaxy immediately. One reason is that Athena's betrayal has been discovered by the celestial beings. I'm not yet able to unlock Athena's self-destruction program. Therefore, I can only take her away so that the celestial beings cannot lock onto us. Another important reason is that I'm now a quasi-celestial being. I will soon become a celestial being. The galactic laws of the Milky Way are already rejecting me and forcing me to leave. The galactic laws of the Milky Way reject celestial beings? Xia Xingchen's eyes flashed with confusion. Carlos' words were too abstruse for him to understand. There are countless galaxies in the universe, and between galaxies is an endless void that is difficult to cross. Therefore, galaxies are also called galaxy islands. The laws of each galaxy are slightly different. The most critical galactic law of the Milky Way is that celestial beings cannot enter. As for why the galaxy laws are like this, I don't know either. Carlos tried his best to explain in a language that Xia Xingchen could understand. The celestial beings cannot enter the Milky Way. Does that mean that humans are safe? Xia Xingchen asked. But what about the celestial beings around Nicholas? It could be a projection. It could be a celestial being's family, or it could be a celestial being's worshipper. In short, it is impossible for the celestial being to come in person. Otherwise, humans would have been destroyed long ago. You can't feel the power of the celestial beings yet. Let me put it this way, it only takes less than a day for the celestial beings to exterminate the entire human race. Carlos explained. One day, Xia Xingchen was stunned, and he thought of an ant nest. To the celestial beings, the human empire that spread across the Milky Way was just a small ant nest. But you don't need to worry. The celestial beings cannot really enter the Milky Way. He can only send agents. According to the intelligence I got, during this period, a new religion quickly emerged in the north. Because it received the support of Nicholas, its momentum of development was extremely rapid. Its name was the Celestial Being Religion. And next to Nicholas, there was a mysterious man in a black robe, called the Messenger of God. Carlos waved his hand, and a three-dimensional image appeared in the air. It was a human man whose whole body was hidden in a black robe. All that can be seen is his pair of golden vertical pupils glowing brightly. He is the Messenger of God, and all the information is unknown. However, he is a very dangerous person. Xingchen, you must be careful of him. Carlos said. I will. Xia Xingchen nodded, silently imprinting the appearance of the Messenger of God in his mind. There is one more thing I can't figure out, but I don't have time to find the answer. Carlos said, I don't understand why the celestial beings attach so much importance to humans. He obviously can't enter the Milky Way, but he still wants to destroy humans. This is too abnormal. You know, even a 3-year-old child can't keep staring at a tiny ant nest. This. If you don't know it, I don't know it even more. Xia Xingchen shrugged helplessly. Okay. Time is running out. I have to go. Carlos looked up at the sky, his eyes a little anxious. He suddenly remembered something, lowered his head and said, "By the way, I have a gift for you." Gift? Xia Xingchen was curious. Carlos waved his hand, and something appeared out of thin air in his hand, a sleeping black kitten. Obviously, Carlos also had a portable space similar to Xia Xingchen's spiritual space. For a quasi-celestial being, it was not difficult to open up a space of his own. What is this? Xia Xingchen looked at the black kitten the size of Carlos' palm and thought it was very cute. However, Xia Xingchen didn't quite understand why Carlos would give him a kitten. It's not a cat. Carlos smiled. I created it. You know, there was a period of time when I felt particularly lonely. So, I wanted to create an artificial intelligent life like me to accompany me. But, I failed. Creating life. Even you can't do it? Xia Xingchen asked. I can't do it either. Carlos shook his head. The limit of what I can do is this little thing. It already has elementary intelligence, but it's still a long way from true artificial intelligence. After I leave, I hope it can accompany you. Of course, don't underestimate it. I have transplanted my database to it, and it has 1/1000th of my computing power. 1/1000th. Xia Xingchen was speechless. My 1/1000th has surpassed all of your large computers. For example, this dragon, but in terms of computing power, it is not its opponent at all. What's more, it has my database, so it can be said that it is a clone of me. Carlos said with a smile. Really? In other words, I can carry a supercomputer with me? Xia Xingchen said in surprise. That's right. Carlos handed the little black cat to Xia Xingchen and said with a smile, take good care of it. Does it have a name? Xia Xingchen asked. Not yet. I'm not good at naming. But you seem to be very good at it. I'm very satisfied with the name Carlos. Carlos said with a smile. Haha, I haven't told you yet. Carlos is the name of a puppy I once raised. Xia Xingchen also laughed. I see. Carlos's expression was a little awkward for a moment. Since it is your clone, I will call it Xia. It is such a cute little thing. Xia Xingchen took the little black cat from Carlos's hand. The touch was no different from that of a real cat, warm and furry, and very comfortable to touch. Xia was very sleepy, and had no intention of waking up. He curled up in Xia Xingchen's palm and fell asleep. Also, Athena has another important piece of information to tell you. Carlos suddenly said. Chapter 848 Starry Sky Coordinates. What information? Xia Xingchen was a little surprised. Well, it's the star coordinates of an ancient celestial ruins. This star coordinate was specially left by the celestial in Athena's database. After Lu Bangxing's affairs are completed, she will be sent to the ancient celestial ruins. As for the reason, Athena doesn't know. However, the confidentiality level of this star coordinate is very high, and it should be a very important matter. Carlos handed Xia Xingchen a star map. Among the billions of stars in the Milky Way, there is a star shining with golden light. This is a desolate planet located in the Sakhalin starfield. From the outside, there is nothing special. However, the Celestials value this planet so much, and there must be a major secret hidden in it. Xia Xingchen put away the star map. Goodbye Xingchen. Carlos was reluctant to leave. Will we meet again one day? Xia Xingchen felt a sourness in her nose, and she held back her tears, and tried her best to squeeze a smile on her face. Yes, there will be. Carlos' eyes were also filled with crystal tears. Xingchen. Don't forget that the ultimate goal of any life is to evolve and become a celestial being. Only in this way can the race continue. If you can't become a celestial being, your race will perish sooner or later. The most important thing is to be strong yourself. Carlos stretched out his arms and hugged Xia Xingchen tightly. The next moment, Carlos suddenly turned into countless tiny dots of light and disappeared in Xia Xingchen's arms. Carlos was gone. However, Carlos' words still echoed in Xia Xingchen's ears. Be strong yourself. That's right, I must become stronger. My eyes can't be confined to the civil war of mankind. This is no longer a war between humans. It's a war between humans and celestial beings. My goal is to defeat the celestial beings. Therefore, I need a strong power. Xia Xingchen clenched his hands tightly, his eyes were firm. Next, Xia Xingchen and Feng Cloche took a small spaceship back to the Lu Bangxing space station. As soon as Xia Xingchen walked out of the spaceship, a familiar figure rushed over and punched him hard in the chest. It was Hao Cheng. Xia Xingchen immediately returned the punch. Just when everyone was surprised and thought that the two of them were going to fight each other, Xia Xingchen and Hao Cheng had already hugged each other tightly. Xingchen, thanks to you, I finally got to see you alive. Hao Cheng already knew that if it weren't for Xia Xingchen, he would have been crushed into a meat paste by Hercules. I should thank you more. You came from Shinyuan Star to save me, Xia Xingchen said. Don't say that. I'm a member of the Holy Temple. I came to Luban Star because of the order of Princess Yu. Even if you were not on Luban Star, I would still come. Hao Cheng shook his head again and again. Xingchen, it's useless for you to say anything. I owe you a life. Xia Xingchen knew Hao Cheng's character. He was such a person. He would repay a favor, so he didn't say much. By the way, let me introduce you. This is the captain of the Saxon, Yao Yuan. He is also under the command of Princess Crossing. Hao Cheng introduced Yao Yuan next to him. Of course I know. Yao Yuan, the youngest captain of a large starship in the Empire. I have heard of your name for a long time. Xia Xingchen walked over and shook hands with Yao Yuan. Sir Knight, I, Yao Yuan, am so lucky to meet you. Yao Yuan's expression was very excited. He had always wanted to meet Xia Xingchen, a legendary figure, and today he finally got his wish. Yao Yuan called Xia Xingchen a knight, not to say that Xia Xingchen's title was a knight. In fact, Xia Xingchen was already a marquis, and his status was far above that of a knight. Because Xia Xingchen was the guardian knight of Princess Xingchen. To outsiders, Xia Xingchen's title was meaningless. But to Princess Xingchen, the significance of the guardian knight far exceeded Xia Xingchen's colonel rank and his marquis title. Xia Xingchen chatted with Yao Yuan and Hao Cheng for a while. When talking about the battle with Hercules, they were still frightened. What kind of monster was that? The Saxon and the temple were okay. The losses were not serious. However, the entire space carrier of the Royal Guardian was sunk. The Empire's first-class Mecha Corps Guardian was also almost annihilated. Yao Yuan's face turned pale. I really don't understand. What are we fighting against? Hao Cheng also sighed. This is the gap in technology. Xia Xingchen sighed. Xia Xingchen knew the origin of Hercules. His brain was actually the S-class Mecha Master Saint Peter. Therefore, his feelings were more profound than Yao Yuan and Hao Cheng. One Hercules could destroy the Empire's first-class Mecha Corps. What a terrifying strength. However, with just one word from Carlos, Hercules exploded and died. The gap between them is like a chasm between heaven and earth. Carlos is not a celestial being yet, but only a quasi-celestial being. His technical means are already incredible, almost like magic. How big is the gap between humans and real celestial beings? When the three were chatting, a petite figure rushed in and threw herself into Xia Xingchen's arms, punching him with her fists. You damn master, you stinky master. Fortunately, you are not dead, otherwise Kirissa will not forgive you. Xia Xingchen hugged the petite silver-haired girl and laughed. If I really died, you would not have time to cry. How could you still have the mind to forgive me? No matter, I don't care. Anyway, master, you promised me to make a new mecha for me. You have to keep your word. Kirissa said coquettishly. Your Xingchen mecha is so difficult to drive. I don't want to drive it again. Xingchen, who is this? Hao Cheng felt a strong pressure from Kirissa, which made the hairs on his body stand up. This is the pressure of mental power, which will only appear when the gap in mental power is too large. Recently, Hao Cheng has undergone special training in the Holy Hall, and with the help of countless drugs, his mental power has improved rapidly, and he has become a Class B Mecha Master. However, he still felt a chill when he looked at Kirissa. How strong is the mental power of this little girl? As for Yao Yuan, because his mental power level was very low and his perception was slow, he didn't feel much. Oh, she is my apprentice, Kirissa. An S-class Mecha Master from the Coffin Star. Xia Xingchen said lightly. S-class Mecha Master? Is she your apprentice? Hao Cheng and Yao Yuan were both stunned, with a look of astonishment on their faces. S-class Mecha Masters are not the cabbages that can be found everywhere in the vegetable market. Every S-class Mecha Master is a treasure of the Galactic Empire. They are very rare, and are the targets of all forces. Hao Cheng and Yao Yuan's identities are relatively special. They are under the command of Princess Crossing and Princess Yu, and both have military backgrounds. Hao Cheng is also a noble of the empire with a prominent family. However, they rarely see S-class mecha masters. Not to mention an S-class mecha master as young as Kirissa, which is simply unheard of. Chapter 849 Agent. What surprised Hao Cheng and Yao Yuan even more was that Xia Xingchen was actually the master of an S-class mecha master. How could a B-class mecha master be the master of an S-class mecha master? This was really unbelievable. Haha, Xingchen, I knew you were fine. This battle was really hard. Krissa cried several times for you. Popovich and Lester walked in, talking and laughing. Xingchen, you're fine. So good. Xia Yu was sitting in a wheelchair and was pushed into the room. Seeing that his son was safe and sound, he was excited and burst into tears. Dad! Xia Xingchen shouted, went up to him, and pushed Xia Yu's wheelchair by hand. This is my father. Xia Xingchen introduced Hao Cheng and Yao Yuan, the two old men. One is the S-class mecha master Popovich, and the other is the martial arts master Lester. Ah, another S-class mecha master. Lester. I've heard of his name. He's a legendary warrior. Hao Cheng and Yao Yuan were shocked again. They had never thought that Xia Xingchen would have so many experts around him. There were two S-class mecha masters alone, and a legendary warrior who was no less than an S-class mecha master. Dad, uncle, these two are my friends, Hao Cheng of the Holy Temple and Captain Yao Yuan of the Saxon. Xia Xingchen introduced. Not bad. It is true that heroes emerge from youth. Xingchen, your two friends are very good, and they are both pillars of the country. Popovich squinted his eyes, looked up and down at Hao Cheng and Yao Yuan, and spoke highly of them. Xingchen. At this time, an excited voice sounded outside the room again. A haggard and thin young man rushed in and grabbed Xia Xingchen's shoulders with both hands. He was wearing an electronic collar around his neck and a black and white prison uniform. Behind him were two prison guards with live ammunition. Xiamin. Xia Xingchen was slightly startled. The young man in front of him was his good friend, Li Xiamin, the third son of the Tang Dynasty group. When they were in the military academy, among the roommates, Li Xiamin had the best family background, while Xia Xingchen had the worst. However, fate changes over time. In just a few years, Li Xiamin became a prisoner, and the entire Tang Dynasty group Li family was escorted to Shanniuan Star for trial for crimes against humanity. Xia Xingchen, on the other hand, became a hero of the empire, and was praised by the people. Xiamin, I was just about to find you. I have captured Athena, and she confessed to her crimes. The Li family's charges will definitely be cleared. Xia Xingchen said. I know, I already knew the news. Otherwise, I would never have come to see you, and I have been escorted to Shanniuan Star. Li Xiamin was very excited and wanted to kneel down to Xia Xingchen on the spot. Xiamin, what do you mean by this? Xia Xingchen frowned, and his face looked a little ugly. He stretched out his hand and raised it slightly, and Li Xiamin could no longer kneel down. Xingchen, you saved our Li family. You are the second parents of the Li family. I really can't think of any other way to thank you, except to bow down to you. Li Xiamin said. Xiamin, we are friends. You should know my character. If you do this again, I will be angry. Xia Xingchen said coldly. Okay, I won't kneel. But you, Xia Xingchen, are the benefactor of our Li family, and I will definitely find a way to repay you. Li Xiamin was still very excited. Xia Xingchen breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Li Xiamin's haggard face. The people from the Li family should have been released, right? By the way, why haven't you taken off the collar on your neck yet? Li Xiamin shook his head, a wry smile on his face, and whispered, the death penalty can be avoided, but the living crime cannot be escaped. Such a big thing happened on Lubenstar, and our Li family cannot escape the blame. Therefore, we still have to be escorted to Shanniuan Star for trial. It's just that we won't be tried for crimes against humanity. The Li family is wealthy and powerful, and it shouldn't be a big deal if we spend money to make it happen. But, Lubenstar has been destroyed and riddled with holes. Now is the time to rebuild. All members of the Li family have become prisoners, and are locked up in prison. The reconstruction of Lubenstar will definitely be delayed. Xia Xingchen frowned slightly. I came to you for this matter. Li Xiaomin said earnestly, I want you to stay on Lubenstar temporarily and become the agent of Tang Dynasty Group. You can mobilize all the resources of Tang Dynasty Group and rebuild Lubenstar as soon as possible. Of course, this is not my idea alone. This is the result of the discussion and unanimous approval of the upper echelons of Tang Dynasty Group. We trust you. I hope you don't refuse. All the resources of Tang Dynasty Group. Not only Xia Xingchen was shocked, but everyone present also had a blank mind and was shocked when they heard Li Xiaomin's words. Tang Dynasty Group is the largest military manufacturing enterprise in the Milky Way. More than 80% of the mechas and starships in the entire Milky Way are printed with the logo of Tang Dynasty Group. The Li family is rich enough to rival a country. There are even rumors that the combined wealth of the Qin royal family is not as good as that of the Li family. The top management of Tang Dynasty Group actually held a meeting and decided to let Xia Xingchen use all the resources of Tang Dynasty Group at will. It can be said that Xia Xingchen will become the richest person in the entire Milky Way in an instant. Xiaomin, I understand your feelings. I'm also very grateful that your Li family is willing to trust me and entrust me with important tasks. But I also have my own things to do. Xia Xingchen politely refused. It's not that Xia Xingchen is not tempted, but he has more important things to do. Xia Xingchen must immediately go to the ancient celestial ruins to investigate. The star map left by the celestial beings in the Athena database is highly confidential and must contain extraordinary secrets. Xingchen, even if you don't think about yourself, you must think about the residents of Lubenstar. Anyway, except for you, our Li family will not trust anyone else. You also know that the litigation procedures of the empire are extremely lengthy. If time is delayed, the residents of Lubenstar will suffer. Li Xiaomin did not give up. He knew that Xia Xingchen was soft-hearted. Xia Xingchen hesitated. To be honest, Xia Xingchen was most concerned about the lives of civilians after the war, hoping that they could get out of the shadow of war as soon as possible and return to normal life. Xingchen, otherwise, you should just agree. Xia Yu also persuaded on the side. He has lived in Lubenstar for quite a while and has developed feelings for this place, treating it as his second home. He also hopes to rebuild Lubenstar as soon as possible. Dad, wait for me to think about it. After being persuaded, Xia Xingchen was somewhat tempted. At this time, General von Klausch came in with a happy face. Xingchen, His Majesty wants to talk to you. He wants to tell you a great piece of good news. Xia Xingchen hurriedly tidied up his clothes and put on his military uniform meticulously, and this time he came to the screen. Chapter 850, Debt of Favor. On the screen, Emperor Qin Zhi was smiling, and Princess Crossing and Princess Yu were standing behind him, also smiling. Your Majesty, princesses. Xia Xingchen bowed. Ha ha ha. Xingchen, you don't have to be so formal. Anyway, we'll be a family soon. Qin Zhi smiled and looked back at Princess Crossing, Qinjana. Her face was flushed, and she lowered her head shyly, not daring to look at Xia Xingchen on the screen. Your Majesty, a family? Xia Xingchen was a little confused and hadn't figured out what Qin Zhi meant. Yes, a family. I have received General von Klausch's report and submitted it to the Senate. The Senate has a very high opinion of you. So, in order to reward you, the great elder Qin Baixuan personally decided to marry Princess Crossing to you. Are you willing? Qin Zhi said. Marry Princess Crossing to me? Xia Xingchen's body suddenly froze, as if struck by a bolt of lightning, and her mind went blank. Xia Xingchen and Qinjana had already secretly decided to spend their lives together, but because of the huge gap in their identities, they were destined to be unable to be together. But Xia Xingchen didn't expect that good things would come so suddenly. Why, you don't want to? Qin Zhi saw that Xia Xingchen was completely dumbfounded and didn't express his opinion and asked with a smile. Yes, of course I am. Xia Xingchen finally reacted and said repeatedly. Xia Xingchen, you are so stupid. Princess Crossing raised her head and looked at Xia Xingchen shyly. In fact, when Qinjana learned the good news, she was also so happy that she was dumbfounded. Now, she still feels dizzy, as if she is stepping on cotton, like a dream. Xingchen, His Majesty said. You are going to marry Princess Crossing? You are going to be a prince consort? Among these people, apart from Xia Xingchen, Xia Yu was the most shocked. Xia Yu was an honest countryman who had never seen any big scenes. Usually, Xia Xingchen rarely told his father about his own affairs. Xia Yu only knew that Xia Xingchen was lucky, appreciated by Feng Klausch, did well in the army, made many military achievements, and was promoted quickly. He had no idea that Xia Xingchen had actually tricked the princesses of the empire into his hands. Moreover, the chief elder of the Council of Elders personally granted the marriage. The emperor of the empire personally presided over the wedding. Yes, Dad. Princess Crossing and I have been in love for a long time. Xia Xingchen whispered. Oh, it's good to be in love. It's good to be in love. In the future, you must treat her well and not bully her, otherwise I will not forgive you. Xia Yu said. Dad, look at what you said. How could I have the courage to bully Her Royal Highness the Princess? She bullies me more. Xia Xingchen laughed. Ha ha ha. Xingchen, you will be my brother-in-law from now on. Who is this? Qinzhi saw Xia Yu on the screen. Your Majesty, he is my father Xia Yu. Xia Xingchen explained. Your Majesty. Xia Yu didn't know what he should do and wanted to kneel down immediately. No need to be polite. From now on, you will be my sister's father-in-law, and I, a junior, will have to call you uncle. Qinzhi spoke very politely. The emperor of the empire calls me uncle? Xia Yu's brain was a little slow to react, and he was stunned. Xingchen. It is rare in the history of the empire that the great elder personally grants a marriage. I think it is better to get married to Jaina as soon as possible. Qinzhi said, if you don't have anything important to do, go back to Xia Star immediately. Your Majesty, I also want to go back to Xia Star as soon as possible to hold a wedding with Jaina. However, I have something very important to do now. In addition, my father's legs are disabled. I have already made an appointment with a medical institution on Lingjiu Star to perform a limb regeneration surgery on him. Can the wedding date be postponed a little bit? Xia Xingchen expressed his difficulties. Yes, brother. It's too abrupt. I'm not mentally prepared. Jaina said on the side. Limb regeneration surgery. This surgery won't take too long. At most, it will take half a year. Royal weddings have complicated rules, and the preparations alone will take 3 to 5 months. The war on the front line is tight. It's okay to postpone it. Qinzhi thought about it and agreed to Xia Xingchen and Jaina's request. Half a year later, the two got engaged on Xia Star. The wedding will be officially held a year later. Your Majesty, I have another request. Xia Xingchen glanced at Li Xiaomin beside him, turned to Qinzhi and said, well, you say. Qinzhi nodded. During the Lubenstar riot this time, the Li family of the Tang dynasty group was wrongly accused and became prisoners. They will be escorted to Xia Star for trial. Can this matter be lenient? Xia Xingchen whispered. You want to plead for the Li family? Qinzhi's face was slightly cold. You are my future brother-in-law, so I'm telling you this. It's not that I want to touch the Li family, but there are some families on Xia Star who have long disliked the Li family and want to take advantage of their misfortune. The death penalty can be avoided, but the living crime cannot be escaped. The Li family cannot avoid this disaster. Your Majesty, the reconstruction of Lubenstar is imminent, and everything needs to be rebuilt. If the Li family is detained, I'm afraid that the reconstruction work will be greatly delayed. You have to consider the people of Lubenstar. Can they make meritorious contributions while serving their sentence, rebuild Lubenstar, and wait until everything on Lubenstar is back on track before going to Xia Star for trial? Xia Xingchen said. This, although it is a bit difficult. But who makes you my future brother-in-law? I can give you this face. Qinzhi looked embarrassed, and after thinking for a long time, he made up his mind and agreed. Thank you, Your Majesty. Xia Xingchen breathed a sigh of relief. Okay, if there is nothing else, let's talk about this. Xingchen, go and do your own thing and return to Xia Star as soon as possible. The screen went black and Qinzhi disappeared. Xingchen. Thank you so much. You saved our Li family again. Li Xiaomin's expression became even more excited. Xiaomin. You don't have to thank me. We are friends. Xia Xingchen said. When it comes to friends, Xia Xingchen can stick his neck out and go through fire and water without frowning. What's more, it's just a matter of talking. Li Xiaomin grew up in a big family and understood the ways of the world. Because of the Li family incident, Xia Xingchen owed the emperor a big favor. Of course, the Li family owed Xia Xingchen a bigger favor. Xingchen, I'll go back first and report the good news to the family. I'll come back to you later. Li Xiaomin said. Well, you've suffered a lot during this period. Take a good rest. Xia Xingchen nodded. Li Xiaomin turned around and left excitedly. Master, tell the emperor that there is something important to do. Do you want to send Krissa back to the Coffin Star? Krissa hasn't had enough fun yet. Krissa came over and said coquettishly. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.